Good evening, it is Saturday night, it has just gone 8 o'clock and it's time for some Doctor Who. And with me as always is, wait a minute, you're not Chris. No, with me tonight is my son, Chandler. Say hello, Chandler.
Hello, Chandler.
No, you
His gimmick.
just nicked Chris's gimmick, you won't
Yeah,
forgive
I
me
know.
for that. Yes, we are here, it's Saturday night, we are doing some Doctor Who. But we're not going to be doing an episode of Doctor Who tonight. We're not going to be doing the watch along. Instead, we're going to be having a bit of a chat about Doctor Who, and it's basically going to be talking more about the continuity in Doctor Who, the disruptions in the continuity, and why continuity and canon aren't necessarily the same thing, and when that's important and when it's not. It's a lot to cover. We're going to be here for the next 10 years, so it's gonna be I think it's gonna be we're gonna encounter some issues along the way because Doctor Who's, let's be honest here, it's kind of messy, right, when it comes to the continuity and the canon. But I think there is an underlying canon with Doctor Who that that is, what's the word I'm looking for, unshakable, I suppose. There is a canon, a through canon there, regardless of what some may say. There is a foundation canon to the story that I think most fans and production have accepted over the years. So
Most.
yeah, well, I mean, I would say so. But I mean, what do you think of the canon in Doctor Who right now?
Well, I mean, right now,
Well, overall, I mean, from the start to finish. I mean,
since I started watching Doctor Who, about 05-ish, fairly solid, fairly unshakable, fairly reliable. Your core principle, character being the Doctor and his adventures through time and space with a companion, and the whole him being a Time Lord thing, which through the revival was a slow sort of reveal over the first couple of episodes. For the people who've been watching since the dawn of time, knew that for ages.
yeah.
And then he was just a regular Time Lord, and nothing ever changed. And they never changed the story at all.
Mhm.
And then up until recently, a lot of people got very mad because they've started to mess with that, which I guess is an interesting way to kind of lead into this discussion now. But what is and is not important in the show, you know?
I mean, the fact that they're messing with the core principles. I mean, I know this has been a big kick up recently, not just with Doctor Who, but with Masters of the Universe Revelation, which just landed on Netflix like yesterday.
Oh yeah.
You know, what is canon and what is, some of the big issues, some of the stuff that you don't think of is going to be a big issue turns out to be a big issue. I actually watched Masters of the Universe Revelation yesterday, the first 5 episodes, because that's all they got. I didn't have too many problems with it because there wasn't a lot in it. But
That's not exactly a gleaming review.
it's not. I mean, somebody asked me what I thought of it, and I said, "Was it good?" I said, "Well, it wasn't bad." Was it He-Man? Well, it looked nice. I mean,
Isn't that what He-Man's really
Yeah.
about at the end of the day?
but the point was the fact that when the things that they had changed in it was unnecessary, and it's just like, and this is the whole continuity debate here. This is the whole thing with, be careful what you do change, because some of the things that you will change will undoubtedly upset people who are long-time fans.
I mean, some things really matter to some fans.
Well, there are things that they brought into the show, and I don't want to get sidetracked into talking about Masters of the Universe, but they brought some things back that I instantly went, oh my god, that's great. Whereby they brought back the shape-in staff, brilliant. Yeah, great. Okay, so they brought back some of the big hitters like the Shadow Beasts or the Crystal Sea. These things that are genuinely sort of part of the original Masters of the Universe world. So they brought all these things back. You get to see Eternos, you get to see you know a lot of these things, and they brought in some elements from the comic as well, which I thought was really good. I you know they brought in Preternia and Subternia, those sorts of things. So there were things that I did like about what they brought in, because they were giving you stuff that we already, or there were rumors about, or we'd already heard about, but wasn't really sort of legitimized. And all this did was sort of like, oh yeah, this is a thing. So that was good. It's when they went, but we're going to change this. That's when you're kind of going, oh, you mean to tell me Castle Grayskull isn't really Castle Grayskull? Really? That's where you're going to go with? And I think that's probably going to upset more people than you know, Teela might be gay.
Well, I think that's the idea of what what'll happen when you change an idea that's so core to a long-running show, to a show that's a legacy show, like He-Man. I mean, with Doctor Who, I mean, a lot of people you could consider maybe Doctor Who to almost be two shows, or at least fit into two distinct eras.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the pre-cancellation and the revival era.
Yeah.
Which even the revival era itself's been going on for like 16 years or so.
Yeah,
but it's a long-running series.
With something like Teela in Master of the Universe, and again, we'll get back to Doctor Who in a second, but I'm going to use this as an example.
Cross-referencing.
Making Teela, you know, bisexual or gay, I don't think it's a massive issue, because, you know, she could be. But I as a He-Man fan from the 80s, I never saw He-Man with Teela anyway. I never put those two together. They were more brother and sister to me. On brother and sister type. They were raised together. You know, she's older than he is, so she always looked at him as like a little brother. And to me, like, you know, it was always He-Man and Froster for me, because it was just like, you know, that
really,
yeah, that woman is
I always
throwing herself at him.
I always put He-Man with Skeletor. For me, it was.
I mean, you know, that could happen. You know,
you never know.
But to me,
Skeletor's a wily one.
yeah. But to me, you know, anytime you add to the have Teela realize that she's bi or something like that, I don't think that's an issue, because that's not a problem. But when you decide to say, well, you know, actually everything that you thought about with this particular element of the show is completely different, that's where I think a lot of people have issues. And this is going to lead into a bit of an echo coming from myself.
I don't know anything.
It could be coming from speaking.
Is it me?
It could be you. I'll try. Hang on a sec. I'll see if I can sort out the audio there. Star Siege players joined us, by the way. I should say that.
Hello.
From the lad on the right. Yes, it's coming from you, Chand.
Hello. All right. What am I to do?
Click on your audio settings and sort it out. That's what.
Yeah. We'll figure this out.
I
have no idea. Noise cancellation. Hold on.
If you go, I don't know. If you
is this fixed anything?
It could be that you're just a bit loud. Maybe, I don't know. Let me have a look at your settings here. Properties. Let's have a look here. I don't know. I have no idea.
It could be that this headset's a rinky-dinky piece of junk.
Yeah, but I'm not getting it from you. This is the thing. If he's getting audio from you, I don't know why you are echoing, because you're not echoing in my headset. I'm going to check the audio mixer. Chand filters, maybe? No. I don't know. Like I said, you're not. Maybe your speakers are on. He says, but you using your headphones on you?
I currently am. Yeah.
There's no audio coming through speakers.
No, I don't have speakers plugged in.
I don't know.
No. Let me try something. But it should be.
You could turn your mic volume down, because your mic volume is really spiked. That's why I've got to turn it down here.
Is it?
Yes. It's loud.
Alright, how do I I got a. There's a dial for my speakers. Can I find a?
I could do that.
Don't want to start messing with stuff and accidentally drop out or something like that. You know.
Yeah.
Let me try. Microphone. Can I turn my volume down? My speakers are all the way up, which is.
I don't know. If I reduce your volume like this, try speaking now.
Hello. Hello.
I don't know. This is like.
Yeah, I do. Well, it doesn't help that you can't really hear it either, so it's.
I got a little bit when I spoke. I could hear me through you.
Ah.
So there's a little bit of something there.
Is this any better?
That seems a bit better. So I'm assuming it is. But yeah, hopefully that's fixed.
So let me turn my speakers volume down and turn my actual headset up, and then maybe that'll help. Is that? I don't know if this is good, bad, or ugly.
I don't know. I don't know what you're doing.
Well, I mean, I'm trying to change stuff, and if anything works.
I know. Where are you changing it to in Skype? Is it?
Right. Yeah. That's all I can really.
Have you thought about using the mic settings in the actual your computer?
Good. I mean, they're usually fine though. I mean, we'll have a look. Microphone setup.
Just go to your microphone and go to your microphone.
Yes. No, I've got it.
Because it's weird that you are getting. I know we had an issue earlier whereby you were having problems because it was coming through both the camera and the microphone.
Yeah, I'm wondering if. I mean, that's probably not have nothing to do with nothing, I reckon, because this is coming through. This one's detected.
You're still coming through loud though.
Yeah. Huh.
I mean, I'm hearing you loud. I know you're coming through on Skype loud. So I'm wondering if we can do something about that. I told you, it's Saturday night. We always have technical. I told you.
It's always something.
Like go to Skype. And go to your microphone, and you should be able to alter your microphone settings there.
Audio, video. Microphone.
So knock auto off.
Okay.
So that
if I put it down, how's it? Is this any better?
I mean,
I don't know if this is good or not. I've moved the bar down to about half. So.
As far as I know, what have I done? I've just clicked on something myself.
Some buzzing coming through, some sort of static or something.
There's a little bit of static there, but I think what's happening is that there's automatically compensating, and yeah.
Right.
But anyway, he says there's it's still a bit, but it's better. There, right. Okay, excellent. We let's continue. Thank you for that, by the way.
Lovely.
So yeah, talking about how continuity isn't necessarily the same as canon, and why continuity is less important. In terms of how you tell a story, it's nice to have the details, but these details aren't necessarily there for. These details help you get from A to B, but they are not the A to B. And I think that's the big difference with continuity and canon, is the fact that the canon is the underlying story, and the details that you flesh out on top are just the dressing. And I think it's big. It's a big mistake that people as an audience take what a character says as fact instead of taking them as face value. I think that's a huge mistake. What are your thoughts on? Jesus Christ, what's that?
That is a motorcycle.
Bloody hell! What are your thoughts on how continuity is handled in terms of? I mean, we just talked a little bit now about Masters of the Universe, but let's get back to Doctor Who. In particular with how they handle the continuity, because do you see the difference between the continuity?
I think, well, I mean, I've never really looked at it more as a distinction between continuity and canon. I mean, I tend to view continuity as a more. I mean, I understand it now, and in those terms, broken down into like the two separate, like the text and the pre-existing lore. Um, but from that sort of perspective, I feel like Doctor Who's always been very fast and loose with how certain things work. In
Mm-hmm.
order to, like, for example, time travel. I mean, it's a show where time travel is a central theme.
Yes.
So for Doctor Who, they've always played it very, um, very sort of soft with how what the rules are specifically on time travel. They never really lay anything out too solid. It gives
So,
them room to play,
so
and
would
they
you
kind of do a
say?
similar thing.
So would you say then that the part of the problem then is that they're trying to explain too much?
I would say sometimes it can be, although I think basically the rule, as far as I can suss it out, and this is just from me, the rule for Doctor Who's continuity tends to be if it happened on screen,
Yes.
then it happened, and if it didn't, then it's eligible to be changed. Like
Yeah,
that's
but
what seems to be the.
here's the thing though.
Mm,
I mean, I think for canon, you could say, oh, okay, this event happens in canon, it happens in
yeah.
an episode. But I think with continuity is a little bit different. I think continuity is more a line of just because a character says something doesn't necessarily mean it's true or
Yeah,
factual.
and that can come into
We're dealing with because I want to talk about a little bit about the origins of the Daleks
sure.
as part of this because originally when the Daleks first get introduced, they kind of introduced as a race of Khaleds that have mutated due to the end of a nuclear war, and then in Genesis of the Daleks, it's revealed that actually they were created by Davros and they were mutated into the final form. But I mean, the general gist of it says, look, the canon was that these are mutated Khaleds, and now you're
And there was a
saying,
war,
yeah,
and now they're
and now the Daleks, but now they're saying that somebody actually created them. Somebody was the creator of the Daleks, and this is how it happened. Now, you could argue that that's a change in the canon, but at the same time, when you watch Genesis of the Daleks, Davros says that what he did was he mutated these Khaleds into the final form of what would happen after the nuclear war. Now, did Davros create the first group of Daleks, and then everybody else mutated afterwards? Or I mean, to me, like there's the difference in the continuity to canon because they still ended up being a nuclear war, and you still ended up with a race of Daleks afterwards. But even
and there's a
so,
lot of mutagenics and experimentation involved that may or may not have been omitted from the original story, but they don't necessarily contradict each other.
yes,
In the general strokes, if somebody was telling you a very abbreviated version of the Daleks' origin story,
yes,
it would work. It would be absolutely. It wouldn't necessarily be all the facts, but those two stories don't necessarily butt heads. It's more like one fits inside the other.
But again, are you going to get all the facts in two lines of dialogue?
No, absolutely not. And
So
that comes down to, honestly, a lot of that can come down to characters saying certain things, and then a writer gets the idea to write something based on that later
yes.
on. I mean, how long after from the Daleks' first appearance in Hartnell's era was Genesis of the Daleks?
That was about 15
years or more. Yeah,
15
exactly.
years.
So
probably more. No, it's
the
70, 76. Yeah, 63 to 76.
The fact that it's about a decade or so is even more impressive.
Yeah.
If you ask me.
I mean,
like that, still
it's not only that because like people talk about where the where how the show has changed and how you shouldn't be arguing about canon because the show's always been changing to a canon because the Doctor first started off as human and then now he's alien. He never started off as human. I want to put this down so people understand. I want to put this down right now.
Flag in the ground.
I'm going to put two barrels in the back of its skull and blow its head off. Okay?
Wow.
He was never, ever, ever human. Sidney J. Newman, when he conceived the show, conceived of an alien time traveler who was 740 years old, who was senile, fleeing his planet from a war. That was the original concept. That was the original concept, the original idea. What he wanted to do was keep every mention of the guy's past out of the story. I talked to you before we came on air earlier today, because actually, I do actually put work into these things.
Yes, you wouldn't believe it, folks.
No, you wouldn't. But I was talking to you about it was about 4 o'clock this afternoon. Or was it?
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
It was earlier.
It was earlier.
Yeah.
But when they originally conceived of Doctor Who, the reason why it's called Doctor Who is because the entire point of the show was that he couldn't remember who he was. He had dementia. He couldn't remember how the TARDIS always flew off in different places because he couldn't remember how to pilot it. And there are instances whereby it's sort of brought into the narrative. But if you want to know where Doctor Who actually came from, it was an idea first postulated that it was going to be a group of scientists. I mentioned this earlier. It was a group of scientists that were of different age ranges, and there was an older scientist, and Sidney J. Newman gravitated towards that fact, and he liked the idea of the older scientist, and he took that idea and then created Doctor Who out of that narrative. But Doctor Who was always
going to be the case.
It was always
an extraterrestrial of some kind who travels through time.
He's not even from the same galaxy.
No.
He's literally not from the same galaxy. And this was in the production Bible before they hired William Hartnell, before they hired Verity Lambert.
And for the folks who wouldn't know, production Bible is essentially the book they write for a show with the rules in it that you just do not break. Those are the rules of the show.
So, Starship Players put, I think people assumed he was human because they didn't talk about his past. Yeah, exactly. And Sidney J. Newman didn't want people to talk about his past.
You would think he was human if you initially met the guy. He seems like a very human bloke, but the more the show goes on, the more you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And again, the reason it's fairly self-evident he didn't want people to talk about the Doctor's past. I mean, the show's called Doctor Who.
He tried to keep it. Yeah. Well, again, but again, when we go back to that, it was even a mystery from him, because that was supposed to be the sad part about it, was the fact that he had fled his home world.
And originally the Doctor didn't remember.
He had amnesia.
Who he was or where he was from, yeah.
Yeah, he had amnesia. He couldn't remember his home world. He couldn't remember his past.
Which obviously, speaking of canon, has changed in the actual show itself now. But that was never really implemented into the show.
It was never made.
That's not a continuity error or a continuity change.
I mean,
on the conceptual stage that evolved.
But I mean, there's other things to do with the show that I think a lot of people do overlook. For example, I know some guy earlier on, last night actually, was talking about how he only had one heart in the original series. It's not true. He did have a heart, because we all do, because without one he's not going to live. But the fact that he had two was never brought up, because in the episode Edge of Destruction, where Ian Chesterton checks, because the Doctor's passed out on the floor, he checks to see if his heart's working. He doesn't deliberately look to see if he's got another one, because why would he?
No.
So when he discovers his heart is working, he's going like, yeah, okay, his heart's working. He doesn't put his hand on the other side and go, yeah, both of them are working, because why would he even assume he's got more than one?
Exactly. I mean, that's killed the Doctor before. The fact that humans don't realise that he's got two hearts.
He says, I didn't know that was in the production Bible. Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was in it from the start. Actually, if there's a book you can get, it's from, I think it's from like 94. I've got a copy of it somewhere. It's Head of Drama. It's called Head of Drama. It is Memoirs of Sidney J. Newman, and it's literally talking about his entire thing. But yeah, it was always implemented from the start. I will try, because I can do this. If I open up a new window, I'll see if I can get you an article, because there's an article whereby he's talking to the Sun, and he actually does mention the Doctor Who's origins. I think this is from 1986. I found it. Oh, that was quick. It doesn't normally happen that fast.
We've already got all of our botching out of the way now, so it should be smooth running.
So if I share this, So like, yeah. So if I look at this here, it now says, and this is a direct quote from Sidney J. Newman. I then dreamed up the senile old man of 740 years of age to be a running character. He fled in terror from another planet in his spaceship, which lands on Earth in the form of a police box. That is literally from the mouth of Sidney J. Newman. So, what do you want to do with that information? There it is.
Mm-hmm. From the man himself?
Yeah. So there you go. So he has always been there from the start. So there are little things when they actually introduce the name of the planet as Gallifrey. This is not a change in canon. And I know there are people out there that don't understand the difference in details and continuity in canon. To call it Gallifrey one week and to call it Sydney the other week, that would be a change in the details and a change to the canon, I suppose, because you're just altering the canon as you go.
You've retconned it.
Yeah, but whereas not to mention the name of the planet and then to give it a name, I don't think that is actually canon. I don't think.
I mean that's a reveal more than anything. That's
exactly.
It's just finally giving the audience a piece of information that they may have wanted.
Yeah.
Or not. Some people probably.
I mean, there are things that they left out of the Bible, which didn't make it into the show. The whole part of him being 740 years old. But then again, this is another thing whereby I've tried talking about this before, where people talk about the Doctor's age.
It's one of the hardest things to pin down, I feel like, in Doctor Who, and at some point, for me personally, you just gotta go.
Well, I don't think it is that difficult, because there's a line of dialogue in Tomb of the Cybermen, delivered by Patrick Troughton, which I think really actually nails her on the head, which is the fact that he's talking to Victoria just after he's shown around the TARDIS in the very opening of Tomb of the Cybermen. The second Doctor is showing Victoria around the TARDIS, and she's talking to him about her father, and he said, "Oh, he was a great scientist, and I knew him, and all this," and she's laughing, and she's like, "Oh no, I used to talk with him," and Fraser Hines' Jamie says, "Oh, how can you do that? You don't look that old," and he says, "Oh, well, I suppose if I put it into human years, I'd be about 450 years old." Well, that explains a lot about how he calculates his age, because when he talks to Kylie Minogue in Voyage of the Damned, he says he's 904 years old, but she's from planet Stowe, not from Earth. So why would he put it into Earth years? Why wouldn't that be 904 years in Stowe years? Do you know what I mean? When he's on Skaro, why wouldn't he put it into Skaro years? Why wouldn't he do the math? Because telling somebody that you're 904 Earth years old to somebody who's not from Earth is like telling you you're a bucket of fish.
Yeah, there's no.
They know.
It's like using is imperial units when you use metric. There's no point.
Yeah, it's like transforming meters into inches. It's a complete. Telling somebody how hot something is in Celsius and to somebody who only understands Fahrenheit is useless.
Yeah.
So, and they would be, but they're both exactly the same age though. You know what I mean? And it's both the same temperature. 84 degrees Fahrenheit is what? 30 degrees Celsius. So why wouldn't the Doctor, given the Doctor's level of genius, why wouldn't he be able to calculate his age based on where he is in the cosmos? I'm not trying to defend that. I'm not trying to defend the show's changes in this continuity here.
Yeah, the Doctor's age has always been one, because another thing with the Doctor's age.
But I think it's reasonable.
They've added in the idea that the Doctor, especially during Matt Smith's era, was that the Doctor lies, which is a recurring gag and line. I guess it is a gag really, but at the end of the day, it was like Star
Siege Players just put it's 30 out. Oh wow, you must be freezing. That's exactly my point. That's exactly. Sorry, Chan. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, it's a good point. Yeah, if I was freezing with 30 degrees, I'd be loving it.
Yeah.
No, it's been too hot. No, but with the Doctor being an unreliable narrator almost is something that's now been written into the show. So
Yes.
now they can kind of get away with the Doctor saying stuff and it not being true.
I see. Right. I wouldn't say. I wouldn't say it's been written into the show. I say it's always been there.
Yeah, true. But now it's officially recognized.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah.
But there's a line in with Matt Smith. I think it's in his last episode where Matt Smith says, I'm like 1100 and something. Unless I'm lying, I can never remember if I'm lying about my age. That's how old I am.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's
that's another part of it.
That's
the whole other part of it. There's a point whereby he might be forgetting how, and is he just monitoring his age per regeneration, or is he monitoring his overall age?
Mm-hmm.
We don't know. We don't know.
Because the Doctor's so mysterious, it's difficult to actually be able to tell a lot of these things.
Yeah. Because didn't Matt Smith hold on to his regeneration for like 1,000 years?
Yeah, he was like 300, something like that. By the time he'd regenerated, I think he was an old man. He hundreds of years.
Yeah. So it's entirely possible. Maybe he resets per regeneration. Maybe.
I mean, he got a brand new cycle by the end of that episode. So I mean, that's a whole new set of 12 lives right there.
Yeah. But I mean, we could talk about that in a little bit. In a little bit. Right. let's not jump the gun a little.
Guys.
Yes. Right. Because this is the big part. This is why continuity matters versus or continuity really can be rewritten, whereas the canon can't. And that's because, like, for example, as we were talking earlier, there's an episode called Earthshock.
Yes.
And the Cybermen enter the TARDIS in Earthshock, I believe. Is it Earthshock or is it Attack of the Cybermen? It's one or the other.
They are in the TARDIS in Earthshock at some point.
And at one point they fire their weapons. And the Doctor had previously mentioned that the TARDIS exists in a state of temporal grace, which meant that no weapons could be fired inside the console room. This is then brought up later on in an episode called Arc of Infinity, where Tegan Joanka says, you told me it exists in a state of temporal grace and no weapons could be fired in there. And then look what happened with the Cybermen. And the Doctor just says, well, nobody's perfect. And that to me is one of those lines of dialogue, which I think is a beautiful line of dialogue. Because it just explains away something that, maybe the state of temporal grace isn't working. Maybe the whatever's controlling it, the TARDIS is a knackered machine, so maybe it's meant to exist in a state of temporal grace, but it doesn't work. I mean, the chameleon circuit's knackered. The flight controller doesn't exactly work.
Never lands where you want it to.
So what? Just because somebody says something, you can't really take it as a given fact.
Or anything. Yeah, absolutely.
And you have to be shown it, and I think that's the big difference between canon and continuity. Continuity is tends to be said. Canon tends to be canonical. It's how it is.
It's more
You've seen it with your own eyes. I mean it's weird, but I think that a lot of people do actually just accept what an initial character says. Brought this up, Star Trek Day of the Dove. Dr. McCoy's talking about the first encounter with the Klingons being a total disaster and taking place in the year 2218. In Broken Bow, we find out that it's 2151. Now, that is the canon year in which the Klingons first meet the humans. That there is a good demonstration of, well, this bloke said something, but he was wrong. Why is he wrong? Because he's not an historian.
Damn it, Jim.
Yeah, he's a doctor, not
a historian.
Exactly. So just because somebody says something doesn't automatically make it canonical. So use a good way of putting it. Okay. So let's say I was to tell you a story. Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story. It's about a man walking through a forest who leans on a rock, has a drink, then he carries on his journey. He meets a bear. He gets chased by the bear. He gets to a river. He crosses the river and he's safe. Okay, that's the story. Man, forest, rock, bear, river.
Yeah.
Right. That's the story. So we then say, right, well, the man came from a town, and he walks through this forest. He gets thirsty. He sees this large rock, and he stops for there. He has a drink. He keeps walking through the forest after he's replenished his thirst. He encounters this bear. This bear chases him down. He gets to the river. He sees stepping stones. He steps on the stepping stones and gets across. So far, we still man, forest, rock, bear, river, right? No, hardly anything's changed. Now we know he's from a town because I just said he is. So now we'll embellish a little bit more on the story and say, well, the man is from a town, and we're going to use Bridge of Don, right? Bridge of Don. It's a nice little Scottish village near Brigabalgownie. It's a lovely little place. That's where he's from. Okay, he journeys to this forest. He goes through the forest. He stops by the rock. How big is this rock? Is it? Can you kick it? Can you lean against it? Is it like Ayers Rock? It's a rock, right? So there it is. So then he encounters this bear. This bear, is it a wild bear? Is it a zoo escaped animal? Right, but it's a bear, right? So there we go. So we've added to that. He gets to the river. Is it a raging river? Is it a calm river? Is it right? We'll say it's a raging river, okay? So then he crosses that, he's safe. That's why the bear can't cross, because there's a raging river right then. So there's the story now. Nothing has changed. The story hasn't changed since I first told it. Still, man, forest, rock, bear, river. Still the same. It's when you go back, and so the details there have been added. Now, if I told you that the man had eczema, it doesn't change the canon. If I told you the man was 30 years old, it doesn't change the canon. If I told you he was 50 years old, it doesn't change the canon. Okay? These little details are parts of the continuity of this story. What happens is that if somebody says, well, this guy's from Cardiff, well, now you're into a bit of a problem here, because I've just told you he's from Brigabalgownie. I've just told you he's from the Bridge of Don. That's a total twist in the story. And he encounters a tiger. Well, no. He encounters a bear. I've just totally screwed this story now. Because instead of man, forest, rock, bear, river, we've now got Cardiff, man, forest, tiger. I mean, it's all over the place. And this is the big difference between continuity and canon. And this is why you can change stuff. I mean, if you put the rules down and said you can change these things within the confines of the story, then that's fine. It's all up for grabs. I mean, I don't know what you think about that.
Personally, I was rooting for the bear, but no, being a long time, I don't know. It's one of those things. Being a long time fan of sci-fi and comic books and all these other kind of long form storytelling, pro wrestling even kind of fits into there.
Yeah.
I'm used to people going in and fill in bits of backstory that weren't previously elaborated on, you know.
But it's okay to have characters get stuff wrong.
Here's the thing. You know, I don't mind. Say if they were telling a story about, you know, Batman. He's a popular character. Let's go for him.
Yes.
And he says, you know, he doesn't know who killed his parents that fateful night. You know, so he's doing an investigation, and he finds out who it is, right? And it's this guy named Joe, and it's like, all right, cool. And then say, you know, 20 years later, they tell the story of, you know, it turns out it wasn't Joe, it was this other guy, you know, and they swap out the details. That's going to be tricky because, you know, it's a detail in a story that's tied so close to the main character and his motivations that it would be kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say insulting, but it would just be a big change to this character that you've been following for so long. You know?
Oh, by the way, apparently Doctor Who just says hi.
Oh, hello.
Greetings, Doctor.
Yeah. So, you know, I think, but a smaller change wouldn't be that big a deal. You know what I mean? Let's say, like, you know, you have him wearing the yellow around the logo, you know, in all these older comics and things, and then somebody makes one that's maybe like a flashback back to that era, and he doesn't have the yellow around the logo. He has the black bat that he's been wearing
Yes.
In the modern times. I wouldn't be that fussed about that because it's not
It's
important.
yeah, but it's a small detail, though, isn't it?
It's
I
a
mean,
small detail, exactly. So
the
it really, for me, it depends on what you're changing and how
yeah.
important it is to the story you're telling. So I think with Doctor Who, especially, there are a lot of little details that can be fudged, and I think
Well,
the
but
nature of the show
it's
set
not
it
going to
up
be
that it allows for
perfect.
it.
I mean,
No.
particularly over 57 years, it's
Oh, yes,
you're
absolutely.
gonna get things that are gonna be fudged and muddled, and you're gonna get little things that are gonna be out of whack.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But the core of the characters in the show, and especially the characters who, you know, I would say the characters who've been in the show for a very long time, or the
yes,
characters who are important to the show, or maybe the titular character who the show is about.
hmm
Maybe those core details should remain the same, or as they've been said and elaborated on. Now, I'm not that fussed on knowing more about the Doctor as a character. I
yes,
feel like the more mysterious you keep the Doctor, the better.
hmm
But that toothpaste is not going back in the tube, so I don't mind it if they put it. If they elaborate more on it, that's fine. But when you change things out and out, it's like, well, we've been doing this for nearly 60 years.
yes.
Why have you got to start messing with it
So
now?
let me just interrupt there because we've got Doctor Who here and says I have good news and bad news. News from the future.
Oh yeah.
Hit us with it. Hit us with it. Whatever it is, we can handle it. Um,
Great sports almanac. All right, let's do it.
but again, this was something that I wanted to talk about as well because we mentioned this. You sent me from the future to warn you.
Come with me if you want to live. All right,
but I mean, we talked about this earlier before we even came on air, Chand, about the nature of time travel inside Doctor Who and why some of the details can change in terms of how the time travel works. Because we were talking about Back to the Future 2. And in Back to the Future 2, due to changes in time, you ended up with versions of reality. You ended up with the 2015 version of Hill Valley, which was a change in the time from Marty's original shift to 1955 in the first movie. And you also then took a Biff detour in Back to the Future 2 where he goes and changes time, in which case Biff himself changes reality to a separate timeline, and then they go back to the past and change that, and then you get a change in time then from Back to the Future 3. So these little changes that they make alter the reality of Back to the Future, of the Back to the Future story. Well, I mean, if this sort of thing is happening inside of Doctor Who, then really, the Doctor Who story universe must be altering as well. If the Doctor changes the future from a Dalek invasion to a non-invasion, then that's entirely changed the total future of that planet. So that must be these must be big changes. The bad news is the Cybermen attacked tonight. The good news is I came to keep you safe, or should I say we?
I see.
But yeah, I mean, there's like Lethbridge Stewart's grandfather not dying in Germany. Yeah, I mean that's a big part whereby you can alter something. He means a streamer. Yeah. We all came. Oh, we've got plenty of doctors here. The second doctor's here. Good. My favourite. Every single one of us. I love it. I love it. I think that in terms of how you deal with the canon versus the continuity, it's the continuity is important to tell the details of the narrative, but the canon is always there. It's always in the underlying underbelly of the story. This is a Doctor invasion. Absolutely. Yes, even me. I like the 13th Doctor. I don't have a problem with the 13th Doctor. I was actually one of the people who supported a female Doctor because I think that there's still plenty of stories for a female Doctor. I think that when you look at what you could do in terms of how you deal with a 13th Doctor, female Doctor, I think seeing it from a female point of view, or particularly when you travel backwards in time, into Earth's past more than anything else. I mean, other planets don't matter because you can just make up.
You can write whatever.
Yeah, but Earth's past, you can say, well, you know, the you've got to write this in a particular way, just because of not because of how the Doctor behaves, but how other people behave towards the Doctor.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. We can loads here. We can plenty of the Doctors have just bombarded us. So yeah.
That's what happens when they all travel to the same point in time.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So even me, they're close. They arrive anytime now. Streamer, are you coming with us? The Sidemen, get them. Keep Streamer safe. Will you come with us, Streamer? 10th Doctor, never. Yeah, Tom Baker was keen on the idea of a female Doctor. Yeah, so was Patrick Troughton. There's an interview with Patrick Troughton when he's in I want to say New York, right? And this was going back. Oh God, they were actually having a Doctor Who night on PBS. I want to say, you can find this clip on YouTube. And he's actually talking. He's actually all bearded up, and he's actually talking to the interviewer. And he's actually mentioning about I think it'd be quite a good idea to have a woman as the Doctor. So Jesus, we're getting a load of Doctors here. They're all welcome. They go.
Yeah, more the merrier.
Yes. You shall not ruin the stream. No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm enjoying it. It's good. We're here to have fun. That's what we're here for. There's the like button, Doctors, is the only way. Good for the second Doctor. Again, my favourite. Faster, I tell you. I think he's brilliant. But yeah. I mean, I think when we're talking, continuity versus canon, I think that the difficult part is when you turn around and say something, and then you decide to change it wholeheartedly. Like, you couldn't possibly go in and say, Skaro's not where the Daleks are from, because that cause an uproar. That would absolutely cause a stink. You could say that Daleks also came from another planet as well, but there'd be a different variety of Daleks, maybe an offshoot colony.
I mean, whether or not these ideas are good is
that's another part. But you could do it, but provided that you provided. I mean, it's like when they did the original Cybermen. The original Cybermen were Mondasian, and then you had Marinus, and then you had Parallel Earth, and then you had Planet 14. You had all these things. So you could introduce the fact that you get varieties. You don't necessarily have to do that, but that's again provided that you stick with those varieties, though. I mean, provided that you say this is how it is, and we're not going to lie to you about this, but we're going to add to this narrative. Adding details doesn't change the canon. Adding details doesn't change that. It's when you go back and tell everybody, no, this is all wrong. This is all wrong. And we're going to start all over again.
It's one of those things as well where if an audience member or just an audience in general allows a character to be important to them, like somebody that some story that they want to be invested in, especially over a long period of time, to change that is kind of it's not necessarily. I would say it's hurtful more than anything. It's kind of like what's the point in investing in any of this?
Yes.
If you can just change it all.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, what's the point in that? Like, so
particularly if you're looking at 57 years of backstory.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, like I was talking earlier about The Simpsons using that as an example.
By the way,
that's a show. Yeah, go on.
Sorry, the Doctors have defeated the Cybermen, I think, and the Daleks. Have we got Daleks? Have we got Daleks here? Yes. Eighth Doctor.
45 minutes.
We've got the 8th Doctor, the 11th Doctor, the Dalek there, the 10th Doctor, the 13th. We've got 8th Doctor, 5th, another Dalek again. Oh, it's the same Dalek. It's just he's going on a killing spree.
Good for him.
Yeah.
Well done.
The only person that's the 6th Doctor arrived here as well. Yes, which is great, absolutely fantastic. Um, Doctor, stop driving the streamer crazy.
Is there any way I can see this channel, or is that?
I mean,
I
don't want to screen share it because it'll actually give me the streaming key. So
good point. Yeah.
So no,
You can't let that get out, boys.
sorry about that, streamer. They don't do it every time. At least you're safe. I'm grateful. It's good to have fun. It's good to have fun. It's good to be safe.
Absolutely. No more than ever. I think my point was there that if you're, certain shows, I think you can get away with just being a little bit more silly with it, a little bit more messing around with it. But the Doctor Who universe, the Doctor Who narrative, takes itself a little bit more seriously than I think a lot of shows that are out and out comedies or something like that. Like Doctor Who can be fun, it can be silly,
yes,
it can be nonsensical at times, but it all fits within this sort of this reality that's.
But therein is the key to the show, though, is the fact that you've got a show that can go anywhere and do anything, and it can do anything week to week. I would still champion for a claymation episode of Doctor Who.
That'd be great.
It's been 57 years. Yeah, it's been 57 years. Why don't we have a musical episode? Why not? Why not travel to a parallel universe or a parallel thing where everything is a musical? You could do these things with Doctor Who. You can breach the barriers of reality and actually produce these sorts of things. You don't necessarily have to stick within the confines of what has previously been established, provided that you return to it.
Yeah.
And I think that...
I mean, Doctor Who is a status quo show in... I think some people would consider it a loose definition of it. I mean, it's not a status quo as something like a sitcom or, another, a show where, it does go beyond its own boundaries at times. Things do change over the course of the show.
Yeah.
The show is not the show as it originally was anymore.
I mean, there's plenty of
but
stuff.
There have always been elements that have been with it,
I mean, there's plenty of stuff you
like
could
if
always
changed shape, even if it was only for an episode. Some people probably wouldn't mind, but if the TARDIS permanently changed to be something else, even though that's not necessarily against the code, like against the canon of the show, people would just.
Do you know?
Like that because they've grown used to it.
I mean, we've gone through and watched the third Doctor series, series 10, series 9 and 10 at the moment. We've done 8, 9, and 10 actually, but we've gone through that, and we noticed that in like series 9, the TARDIS is pretty much absent from the entire series. But it's not important because it's always there. We don't see it, but we know it's there. It's at unit. But it's not storied because it's not important to the story that they currently tell during the Doctor's exile. But obviously, part of the canon is that he travels anywhere in time and space. So when he gets that back, off we go. That's that's how he runs out. But they don't abandon it. So could you do a Doctor Who series where they get rid of the TARDIS? Yeah, you could. Absolutely, you could. No, but I mean, you could get rid of it. I mean, like just get rid of the TARDIS. Give it a hero's death and get rid of it. Absolutely, you could.
Yeah, wow.
But
bold.
It would be, but you could do it. I mean, I don't know how you'd get around it. I know you probably would upset quite a few people, but maybe if
vortex manipulator, something, etc. You can do it.
But maybe if you could always bring it back. This is the thing with science fiction. There's an old saying that nobody stays dead in sci-fi. So you could actually do these things. That doesn't change the canon. That doesn't change where the TARDIS came from, what the TARDIS is. It's just that you decided to kill it.
Or anything that's happened in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
That we've seen, That's another thing with retconning stuff and changing canon, is that sometimes it overwrites things that we've already seen and grown attached to.
Yes.
It takes things that stories we enjoy and say, oh, these don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And it's something that can happen every now and then with a big retcon. I mean, I get a lot of this being a comic book fan, where DC or Marvel every now and then will just go, yeah, we're wiping it clean, we're starting again. And it's something I've grown used to there.
Yeah. I'm just out of curiosity, and I'm not really sort of I'm just curious about this. Would you accept a Doctor Who reboot?
Ooh. For any other show, I would say, yeah, why not? But, I mean, provided that it's good.
Yeah.
Then I'll take it. And even in Doctor Who's terms, like, I could get over the fact that it's a reboot if it's good. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think quality for me is the overall king of a decision like that.
Mhm.
But Doctor Who is such a legacy show. I mean, the revival was kind of a reboot for a while. I feel like a lot of people were like, "Is this connected to the previous one? Is it not? Is it?" And then it became more overtly the same show.
We knew.
References became more common.
We knew. Yeah, it was definitely part of the same universe by the time we got to School Reunion, which is like the third episode of second episode of the second season. So it was definitely connected. But I mean, like to do it
run, it's like, oh, we've got a Dalek, we've got a Cyberman head, that's an Easter egg. But other than that, it's a new show.
No, because I tell you why I'm asking that is because before they actually made the Battlestar Galactica reboot, Richard Hatch was actually pressing to make a Battlestar Galactica sequel. And he actually shot a Battlestar Galactica sequel, which I think you might be able to... I don't know if they shot the full thing, but I think parts of it you can definitely see on YouTube, which was... It was supposed to be a continuation. It was supposed to be like a continuation of the original Galactica, but set like, 20 years later or 30 years later. Whereas... when they did the Galactica reboot, obviously it was a clean sweep from the ground up. Where I mean, a lot of people think that they changed a lot in Galactica, but because they introduced skin jobs and all this, and they didn't. They didn't introduce skin jobs. Do you know who did?
No.
Galactica 1980.
That show that exists.
Yeah.
Do you remember that show, guys?
Star Siege Base just says the trailer's on YouTube. Cool. That's great. But yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, so if they were to give it the Galactica treatment and do a reboot, would that be more palatable if that was the case?
No.
Yeah.
Not for me, and here's why. And I think because Doctor Who exists in a space in which you can tell stories, and you won't be able to run out of stories to tell. I don't think it's possible. I just think you have to. I think you have to really. Doctor Who lends itself well to being able to play a bit more fast and loose with its continuity.
Yeah.
If you want to tell new stories, just tell new stories. And if you want to mess around with the canon a little bit, that's fine. But make it good and be very careful with what you're doing. But you don't have to go that route. Is what I'm saying. You can always come up with a new thing for Doctor Who. It can be set anywhere and anywhen, and have any cast and be about anything. It's a show that is so adaptable. So I don't think it's possible for you to really... I don't think a reboot would be necessary, is what I'm saying. I really don't think you need to wipe it all.
What if they were doing a movie, though?
Again, a movie, I mean, yes, but I don't see why you'd need to. You know what I mean? I feel like if you were going to set up a movie, just have it be its own story.
Okay,
that's fine.
Here's my advocation for actually rebooting for a movie. You couldn't keep the production values from a movie going back to a TV show.
You don't have to. Movies and shows have always done that.
I know, but provided you'd have to make the movie self-isolating from the TV series, I suppose, because you don't want to have it story written in, because they tried that with the X-Files, it didn't work.
You probably want to do it like Firefly, how they had Serenity at the
but
end.
that was after.
It is its own circumstances, but Firefly's story and Serenity's carry over. But Serenity is a self-contained movie. You can watch it without watching Firefly, and you won't be too confused by the end of that film. You'll be like, okay, I know who everybody is. I know what the goals were. I know who the bad guy was. We had a story. It wrapped up.
It's just the fact that what I'm thinking of is production budget, and I'm not saying that because they did sort of do to give you some sort of idea of what I'm getting at here. When they made Star Trek First Contact, they had redesigned the Borg. Completely redesigned the Borg from the ground up.
Awesome.
Yeah, they look amazing. At the same time, they still used similar costumes to that back to Voyager, and they still good looking Borg, but they're not the same. They're a little bit.
You can tell, it's
And the same with the studio, with the sets for the Borg cubes. They completely different Borg cubes, Borg sets. So there's a little bit of a blowback there as well. That's what I'm getting at, is that if you do make the transition to a movie and then back again, keeping up that production value.
My 2 cents on it, if you're asking, which you did.
Yes, I did.
Is to say that I wouldn't care. Like that's just where I sit on it. Like,
yeah.
I just know that that's a movie and that's a TV show. But I'm more on the story level. Do you know what I mean? That's where I'm.
So you still wouldn't reboot it even for a movie?
For a movie, I would just write a story that fits a movie structure. If it's your hero's journey, that's fine. If it's another type of, like a story wheel, that's okay. You just do a 3, these days more likely 4-act structure, and call it good.
So let me just. I'm gonna put another little bit onto this then.
Okay.
You're gonna make a movie that's gonna be sold internationally. To as much of a wider audience as possible. Now, would you reboot it?
Look, I'm not in charge. Look. Here's the thing. I understand. I would say no, and then they would reboot it, and I would die on that hill. That's how that would go. Because I know how marketing works and how branding works. It's not. The story isn't the most important thing, and because of that, if they were going to reboot it, that's what they'll do, and it's fine.
Yes.
I don't think it's necessary. I'm also not against the idea. I want to point that out. Like I'm against it only because I don't think it's a necessary thing to do. I think that like the carryover in continuity and canon is something that Doctor Who, as such a long form story, benefits from. I think that having that much lore, having that much to fall back on in your back catalogue, is something that can only be built naturally.
Yeah.
It's it's like the Undertaker's undefeated streak. It doesn't, you don't book that, you don't write that. It just comes up over doing it for so long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas
and then he gets defeated.
If you were to reboot it, yes, it does. And then the third F5 happens, and there we are. But you can snuff it out in an instant. That's fine, but it can't take it away.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I think if you were to reboot it, that would be like a third F5 to the Undertaker. That's what I would say. Is my opinion on that, and that's not necessarily.
So what are you talking about then? So what you're actually talking about here is legacy.
Yeah, I'd say that's a good way to put it.
So in other words, you don't want somebody dicking around with the legacy of the storytelling.
Yes, I feel like if you were to do it, and you can make good shows, you can put on good stories after that. You can. It's possible.
It is possible.
Especially if you don't fight Goldberg in Saudi Arabia, that would be great. But generally speaking, you can put on good stories, good shows after that.
Yeah.
After you've rebooted the product, but that doesn't. It still is kind of in my eyes. It would still be tainted by the fact that it's not the same thing really. I mean, look, new ideas are fine.
Yes.
New ideas are fun. I like new ideas. Reboots have this stigma of being considered automatically bad by default, which I don't think is true. There are bad reboots.
There are,
reboots as well.
Yeah, of course.
So I think, like, honestly, if it got a reboot and it was good, I'd be on board for it.
Do you know?
I would just prefer it if it was the same show.
Yeah.
I don't see why it could be.
Talking about, do you know what's worse than a bad reboot? A forgettable reboot. Because I had totally forgotten. Like totally. I had totally blanked me that they had made a Keanu Reeves movie. And yeah.
I don't know if I even knew that existed in the first place.
I mean, it just went. So
I'm
that was
getting
worse.
images in my brain. I think I was aware that was a thing, but I'm just wow.
It was just like it was just like. I wonder why they haven't rebooted this movie, and then it was like, oh, they did. And it's just like when I remember seeing Klaatu, and it was just like, oh, that's why. Yeah, okay. So it was just like, those sorts of things. There's nothing what's worse than a bad remake, a forgettable one.
Yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, reboots are hit and miss. I feel like a lot of people aren't going to be keen on it just because it's a remake, and they don't. And I don't think I'm in the same camp as those people. Like, I think Doctor Who can be the same thing. I think it can stay in the same continuity and continue telling more stories. I think say, all right, we've had a thing happen in Doctor Who recently that a lot of people are not happy with. I feel like it wouldn't take much to just sci-fi that away. It would be fine. All right, we can move on. You know.
And not to go back to talking about. I don't want to railroad this into other things as well. But I think it's a good idea to make comparisons. But comparatively speaking, when they did, for example, when they did Star Trek Enterprise and they done In a Mirror Darkly, they honoured the past of the show by showing you the original Constitution class, by showing you the original bridge and all the original sets, and they modified them. They changed some of the details because they had working plasma screens and all sort of working LCARs and things like that on the set. But they didn't really change the overall aesthetic. Whereas now, these days, with Star Trek Discovery, they've taken this particular era in the show and given it a whole new look. And Star Trek, the disco looks, it's a floating pizza cutter, and not to drag it down. I hate having to it bothers me. It hurts me to talk about it like that. But I mean, those are how you honor a show, and how as far as I'm concerned, how you don't honor the canon. In terms of how they did it with Doctor Who as well, because I think Doctor Who was very good at keeping its own canon. And the part I loved more than any other thing with Doctor Who, with keeping to the canon, was when they did Twice Upon a Time, and it opened with Previously on Doctor Who, and it literally showed, and it literally had the clip from the 10th Planet, and they didn't even try to redo the effect of the Cyberman spaceship landing on the surface. They just kept the same effects, and then it just enlarged, and they blended it with the footage from with David Bradley, which still pains me that there's like 15 minutes that they cut out of that. Yeah. Like they shot the whole end to the 10th Planet.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. And they built the base. Yeah. The Antarctic base. Yeah. They built the entire set from 10th Planet. They built it all. They reshot the end of that episode.
I would have thought they would only build what you see in the episode itself.
No, they built it all.
Crazy.
Yeah, they built it all.
Planet is notorious for being like unfinished. Well, like we haven't got all of it, have we?
No.
People have tried to remaster it.
We've got it animated now.
Yes, we do. Yeah, I mean, I know people have attempted to put animations over the tracks and stuff like that, and that's fine. That's totally cool. But I mean, I didn't know that they'd gone in with sets and actors and reshot.
Oh yeah, they rebuilt they rebuilt the whole base, and they shot loads of it, and we never got to see it. They even cast several people to look like the original actors as well. It was crazy how in depth it was, and we only got that short snippet at the start. But I mean, that's being faithful to the show.
If you're listening.
I don't know if they've released some of it on the DVD. I have no idea. But it would have been a lovely addition to that particular episode as a sort of a director's cut kind of thing. But that's again a separate issue there. But if you're talking about overall, I mean, can you think of any big canon changes to Doctor Who that have happened over the years? Because I'm struggling with how to deal with the canon versus continuity thing, because to me, like, there's not really been that big of an issue with the canon.
I feel like there's an elephant in the room.
I mean, this is why I'm asking you about this, because I'm trying to think of previous.
You mean ones that aren't that one?
Well, I mean,
the only one I can think of, which isn't necessarily, but people have always pointed to it, is that scene in the Brain of Mobius. Brain of Mobius, when they're like, showing all these other faces when they're in the psychic.
but again,
machine. But that was never really specific or quantified. It doesn't really step on any canon. It's just a lot of people have felt the need to head canon that a bit.
So this is my issue with that actual scene, and what that actually led to is the fact that, to me, what that actually led to was somebody taking their fantasy of what they thought that scene meant and writing it into reality.
Yes. Which obviously has done nothing but wonderful things with the show.
I do think there's a way back. I'll be honest with you. I do think there's a way back.
I don't think like that's what you talk when you were saying about like rebooting the show. I'm like, well, I don't think that's necessary. I can see it happening, but if it ends up happening, it's a marketing decision.
Yeah.
It's not a I think in terms of Doctor Who, things that have I mean there's probably a lot of stuff in the Russell T Davies era that probably I'm thinking mostly about the future of the human race. You know, where they keep saying the fourth great and bountiful human empire or whatever. They keep talking about that. I'm fairly confident there's got to be like some timeline out there somebody's put together of what is the future of the human race according to Doctor Who.
Right.
Probably a bit messy,
So,
but I have no idea.
So here's the other thing as well. I'm gonna bring this up because I just remember this. You just reminded me actually. Given that we're talking about human future, this is something that I wanted to bring up as well. So there is an episode in Jodie Whittaker's run. I'm trying to think which one it is. I don't think it's Praxeus. Orphan 55.
Yeah, they kind of Planet of the Apes, don't they? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah. Okay. So Orphan 55 turns out to be Earth. Okay. And yeah, this actually is a bit more of a problem for me because they'd already done this in Doctor Who. They'd already done it in the 6th Doctor story. It was done in Twin Dilemma, I believe. In Twin Dilemma, it's revealed that the planet is Earth, and because Perry's actually in the London Underground, and it turns out that she comes across the name of the station. So it had already been done, and that to me. Where do you take the canon from that? Is Orphan 55 an offshoot of this future for this planet? I mean, given that it had already happened before.
But yeah, I don't know. The thing is, I can't think of any examples that aren't kind of niche or specific to two episodes that don't gel together. You know, I'm trying to think.
I mean, what about yeah? But let's actually address this one then. The Doctor being half human.
On his mother's side, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yes and no. The canon of the movie is something that I feel like fans were debating since before I was born. Do you know what I mean? And still to this day, I feel like. The movie's one of those things where you can come up with your own headcanon for it. It wouldn't be too bad if it was only the Doctor who said it, but the Master says it as well. And he says it based off of a scan or something, I can't remember, but he gets a reading and he's just like, oh, the Doctor's half-human, that explains everything. And it kind of ties into the climax in the movie where only the Doctor can open the Eye of Harmony, and Grace could do it, apparently, because they're human and you need to be human to open the Eye of Harmony.
That doesn't even make sense, yeah.
It doesn't, no, but it's in the movie, so I guess, we have to take it.
I don't think you have to be human, I think you have to be pure.
I don't know.
I think that's what it is.
All I know is that there's something to do with, like, it's not just the fact that the Doctor's delusional, right? Because he's just regenerated. If he'd just said that, and it'd been like, okay,
because if you right,
alien and wacky.
No, because if you remember, and I don't want to again, this is getting caught up on details here, but Grace couldn't open the Eye of Harmony because he had altered her eyes.
Oh yeah, she was all black-eyed peas.
Yeah.
Will I am up in there.
So
That's fine.
Yeah. So
Is it? Can I make a Black Eyed Peas reference? Is that like 15 years too late?
yeah, that's way out of date, but never mind.
Yeah, it's way. Anyway, moving on. So the show about time travel. It's fine. It
Yes.
could be 2005.
Yeah, we'd already gonna end at the start.
Yeah, exactly. No, there's a thing with the movie where it's like, is it canon, is it not canon? And a lot of people go, yeah, kind of, maybe, if, sort of. Do you know what I mean? Like Paul McGann's Doctor seems to be canon.
Yes.
The Eighth Doctor era in the Big Finish books has been referenced in the show.
Yes, but only those references are canon.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those things where it's, but you know, a lot of people say, well, tangentially, then by association, these things may or may not be canon. But also, Doctor Who's a thing where it's like, if it works. I think Doctor Who the show works off of tiers of canon, and the number one is the show. Any supplemental stuff on screen is like number two, and then anything like Big Finish books or comic books or even video games would be like tertiary. You know, it's like they can do things.
Yeah.
So you can do things in the video games for Doctor Who that contradict the show, or the other way around. The show can contradict the games because it's not. The show's doing whatever it wants to. Because the show is the prime continuity. You know, it's the main source of what we consider canon.
I want to go back.
It fits into that.
Yeah.
Section.
I want to go back to talking about the movie actually, because I actually had a little bit of a conversation with Philip Siegel, who was the producer of the Doctor Who movie.
Oh yeah.
And we did chat a little about why he made the Doctor half human.
Yeah.
And he actually just flat out just went, well, it seemed like a good idea at the time.
Some things do, you know. Some things do. I guess.
He didn't think at the time that it was going to be that big of a thing, and
here we are.
Yeah, and basically he kind of put. I think he wanted to kind of put it in there as sort of a bit of a tongue-in-cheek wink. You know, as a sort of a wink to the audience, I suppose.
It feels a bit Spock to me, if you're asking.
But
they
they were adding that stuff to the narrative that didn't need to be added. And
I believe the Doctor Who movie wasn't originally intended to be canon in this. I don't know, because Sylvester McCoy starts off that movie.
Right, yeah, it's intended to be canon. It wasn't intended to be low budget.
No, but it was also meant to. Well, yeah, but it was also meant to be like an American pilot or something. Wasn't it?
It was originally right.
There was a whole thing.
It was originally going to be a Doctor Who movie made by Steven Spielberg. It was originally going to be a Steven Spielberg film.
Wow.
And we even got design work from that period, which looks at the Spielberg Daleks and things like that. There's even footage of it. But that fell through.
As production stuff does.
It happens, but they still wanted to make it, and so the BBC ended up investing more than they wanted to into the production to make it go. Canada had an investment, which is why Canada is still linked to Doctor Who these days. And that's really how the movie, because Universal put money in, which is why Universal gets the big, thing. But the BBC ended up having to invest more than they intended to get the movie made. But yeah, so the continuity from that film technically is the canon of that film. It technically is to be integrated into the actual show. So how we deal with that, how you deal with his mother, he's half human on his mother's side. That bit, you can either deal with that as, say, he's just having a bit of a joke.
But he's not. That's the thing. Because it's not just. See, if it was the Doctor by himself, I'd say, well, he's cuckoo regeneration. Like that's a common thing. That's easy. If it was just the Doctor who said it, that would be easy. But the Master confirms it later via external sources. So it's
he doesn't. It's hard to say. It's hard to say what happened in that moment, because he really just looks at the retina of the eye, right?
Yes.
He doesn't really doesn't. There's no sort of genetic scan there.
Well, yeah, but I'm not sure how. What I don't know what he's doing. That's the real thing. And I guess within that space, that's where you have to work to try and fiddle this and headcanon it back into, the previously established and since established, because they did forget about it. They
Yes.
dropped that idea, and
For good reason.
now it's yeah, but because of that, it's not like our previous examples where they've gone and added something else to the canon. What's happened is they've added something else and then hastily tried to take it back out again without addressing it. They've just forgotten about it. They've just left it back in the midst of time, and no one's meant to mention it. Don't bring it up. Do not mention the fact that the Doctor once claimed and was almost confirmed that he was half human on his mother's side, because that's not true. And they will take you out back.
I was just saying.
They will deal with you.
All I'm seeing is the people working on the production thinking this is a good idea, and then then playing the tape for the producers back at BBC, and just having the same reaction to Naked Gun 33 and a third.
Yeah, beautiful. All of them at the same time. Yeah, I can see that definitely being the case, because like it's one of those things where it's such a something you consider. Well, hey, if I was working on Doctor Who and I didn't really care about Doctor Who, I didn't know what it was. Say I'm a hired gun director. And I'm not saying that this gentleman, this producer, was necessarily about that, but if I was, it's one of those things where you change something in a TV show,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, why do people care so much? And obviously we've gone through it. Like, people care because they've grown attached to this thing.
Yeah.
It's I wanted to mention The Simpsons earlier, and actually the perfect example is when, if you're a big Simpsons buff like me, they changed Principal Skinner's backstory in a season 9 episode, which was so bad. Most people consider, most Simpsons fans, hardcore Simpsons fans, consider the golden era of The Simpsons to have ended with that episode. Like that's when the show wasn't good anymore.
Yeah.
That's how bad.
And
the whole
narrative of
it's a gag.
Seymour Skinner. Yeah.
The idea was like, well, we'll just say to him, we'll do this episode, 22 minutes, and by the end of it, no one will ever speak of this again. And that's the kind of vibe of it, right? And that's a gag, and it's meant to be funny, but people took that seriously, man. People went, no, you can't do that to this character.
But that's the thing with all characters, though. I mean, you can't do that to any character. You can't tell people this long story over a long period, and then suddenly decide to change, how this thing came into being.
What decisions led them to this point, what they've been through as a person, those sorts of things. And it's interesting, I've actually heard a snippet, and I wanted to stick with The Simpsons because it was a good example, because I've actually heard the producers of that episode
Yes.
wonder between themselves, on like DVD commentary, I think it was, on the episode, they were like, well, we were really surprised at how many people cared. Like, it's interesting why people care so much about this, fictional character, and it's said in a way as if the guy, he doesn't seem to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, people do, and can't.
But yeah, so why do you think people care? Why do you think people care more about certain elements then of the canon than others?
I think that's the real trick, is because I think it's related to. I think there's a level of like narrative dissonance in there. I think there's a level of like, how close is this to our main characters? Do you know what I mean? How important is this to our main characters? Because the idea is, when you tell a story, you're meant to be able to empathize with the characters in the show, right?
Yeah.
Or in the movie, in the book, and whatever it is, right? If you're trying to tell a story, you need emotional stakes. You need a surrogate to connect with in that show. So the idea behind any form of media is to be able to see things the way the character does, or at least connect with them on some sort of emotional level. So if something happens to that character, and it's important to that character, for it to be successful, to be a good story, it has to be important to the audience as well, right?
Yeah.
Like that's I think what it is. So if it's something trivial, if it's something that the Doctor doesn't care about, then we don't have to care about it either. It's like, well, there we are. Whereas if it's something important, something close to that person, close to their history or whatever's happening in their current situation, relationships, etc., whatever it is, if it's important to them, it should be important to us. And most of the time it will be, if it's a well-told story. And Doctor Who has had 57 years of well-told stories most of the time.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where obviously things that are important to that character are going to be important to us, and there isn't much more you can't get more important than the character's own personal history. I feel, and that's when if you start changing things like that,
Yeah.
or changing things about their worst enemy, changing things about the long-running fixtures of the show, things that this character's meant to live in that world, and this character's meant to know,
So
and so are we. Then it starts to become,
So let me,
no, you can't do that.
just quickly, can you just check your mic again? Because apparently you're getting a little bit more of an echo. So I don't know if you've moved your mic or anything.
I don't believe so. Although
Are you closer to your mic? Because I know you got.
it is temperamental.
Yes. Because I seen you did dip down there a little bit. But just check your mic. So let's talk about the big elephant in the room. Let's actually talk and get into what where this is coming around to, and that
You've
is
been kind of teasing it this whole time.
the importance of changing something in the narrative, such as they did with the Timeless Child. And well, no, it's not even the Timeless Child here, but in the fact that the Master destroys Gallifrey. This is because adding something like that to what has actually gone before might seem like, oh, this is not really important. If the Master destroys Gallifrey, it's not really that relevant. But it was brought up last week by Chris that the fact that actually it is important, because in Day of the Doctor the whole painting is called Gallifrey Falls No More.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of weeks later, Gallifrey Falls. I don't know what to do with that information.
Well, what happened was
can you just check the echo on the mic first?
Is it okay? I've done some fiddling with it. Let me. I might have to do something horrible here, but I think you might be the only one who hears this. So
No, we'll all hear it. You just got louder as well.
Oh, good. Did I?
Yeah.
Is that change stuff?
I think that might be better. I hope that's better. But
anyone confirm whether or not it's better? We have sources on this.
well, I hope so.
Hello. Hi.
I'm gonna just wait for a short second to see if we get a.
No worries.
What you got to remember as well is that the stream is like 15 seconds behind actual streaming. So, we've
live radio, man. You can't,
that's the way it works. That's the way live is. Live is as live does.
Live, pal.
Well, I'm gonna ask this again, because just so we can get really into it. But how badly, or if any, does the Timeless Child and the Master destroying Gallifrey affect the narrative of Doctor Who?
It does and it doesn't. In some it does affect the narrative of Doctor Who. The importance of it depends on the element of the narrative you're talking about. I feel because for a one-off or individual story, it's not going to matter. You don't have to reference it. It's not important. If you're telling a story that is different from that, if you're telling something, that's a one-off weekly episode of Doctor Who that has nothing to do with it, you don't ever have to mention it, and it's fine. But a lot of people would consider that wrong in and of itself. I mean, something like the Timeless Child should probably matter. It should probably be important. If you're gonna do it,
Yeah.
do it. You know what I mean? Don't just have the Doctor brush it off by the end of the episode. You know?
Is that also another part of the issue then? Is the fact that not only was it referenced and made a thing, but also the fact that it was dealt with almost an off the shoulder remark.
Yeah, it was almost Luke Skywalker doing that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
that's what I mean.
It didn't really matter. It was fine. It was. That's the worst part. If you're gonna do it, make it dramatic. If you are gonna go and commit to doing this, which I don't recommend that you do, but if you're gonna do that, then at least have it be important to the story you're telling. Have it have weight. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't deliver a massive continuity shattering revelation in a package that also comes with a bit of a wet fart of an ending, and then nobody cared. Do you know what I mean? That's how I see it.
But wait, I mean, like, going forward from the actual news of the Timeless Child, whereby, you know, the Doctor isn't really the Doctor anymore, and that this has been... Because I think there are ways and means...
The character's pretty much been changed as far as we knew.
Yeah, throughout all of history.
Not only does it directly contradict things that have already happened in the show, like Matt Smith's regeneration entirely. The dramatic stakes of that situation are just no longer relevant now because the Doctor has infinite lives.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But even if you disregard things that have happened in the past and only look forward, it has to be important. It has to matter. Otherwise, why'd you do it in the first place?
I mean, I can't really speak to what they're gonna do with the next series, obviously. But obviously, so far it hasn't been acknowledged. Should they acknowledge it?
I think that's the decision that they're gonna have to make, and I would say, please. I'd say the only reason I'd like to see it acknowledged is to undo it with just a line of dialogue, and that will be that. Because that's as much grace as they handle it with. So don't give them an inch. You know what I mean? But at the same time,
but can you see
make it important?
Can you see why some people then would be absolutely livid as to what happened with the Timeless Child?
Yes, I can. Yeah. I think for me, I wasn't that dramatically upset when I heard about it. I was surprised.
Yes.
I was shocked. I was like, oh, wow, you've gone and done that. You've gone and fundamentally changed what we knew about this character from day one. From before day one, day negative, whatever. But
there's no real reasoning for it either. It was just kind of a reveal.
No, it's just a shocking twist for the sake of it, and that's the worst part. Well, there's many worse parts. There are 3 or 4 worse parts of this, but somehow. But
then layers are worse.
Right, it's like an onion. It's like an ogre.
Yeah.
It has layers. But I think honestly, yes, and I can see why people would be upset, and I could see I would have been upset if I cared more. I'm too jaded by today's media to care about things anymore. But if I wasn't, then I would. Yeah, I would be upset. But the thing is, at the end of the day, I'm not worried because I've seen continuity changes like this before. I've seen things in other media, long-running media, that have just been undone.
I don't want to be a downer on this, right?
Yeah.
I have heard rumours about Doctor Who's future. And it doesn't look pleasant. And I don't mean about the future writing for the show. I mean about its actual future, about where the show is going and how long it's got. How right those rumours are, I don't want to get into speculation. But based on the viewing figure numbers, I think you can kind of guess what's likely to be happening behind the scenes. There's bound to be debates about this. Creating these instances and shifts with the canon, though, clearly this is what's, would you say, is a contributing factor to currently the I don't want to say state of, but because like inherently, if this had happened in any other show, you'd probably be like, oh, okay, this is now made this character important. But with Doctor Who, I'm trying to think of what this has actually done, and
so use where I'm sitting on it. I'm trying to take it out of my own sort of biases as to what I prefer in a story, and tackle it from more of like, okay, this is what you put on the table. This is what we're working with. Can we make this work? And I think the answer is yes, we can. It just has to be handled with care and handled with the situation of like, okay, if we're going to do this, we have to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Right. Or the other alternative is to just forget about it, like how the Doctor's half human on his mother's side. Just leave that. Leave it be. Don't even worry about it. Right. Or undo it in a sentence and move on. Right? Yeah. But so I think there are ways. It depends. I don't personally want it to stick around, but that's because I've grown attached to the character as I've known them.
Yeah.
And the multiple iterations of that character, and but if you're gonna do it, and don't be apologetic about it. But I would say, is it a contributing factor? Is annoying your entire hardcore devout section of your audience for a long-running sci-fi show, who are the audience that kept the show alive
Yeah.
during its absence from the airwaves for over a decade. Is that going to affect the viewing figures of your show? I would say yes. I would argue it's possible that annoying the most devout section of your fan base to the point where a lot of people have considered just turning off the TV, and I know for a fact that a lot of people have just stopped watching the show
Yes.
now because of the Timeless Child. I would say that is a contributing factor to the decline of the show, but at the same time, the way I see it, and this is just my own personal opinion, there are no sources on this one. I think the Timeless Child is actually a cherry on the little poo sundae that we've been making for the past couple of years. I think it's just the thing that finished it off. I feel like,
I mean, like,
Doctor Who was slowly dying in the garret, and somebody put it out of its misery, and that's
the thing is, though, I mean, there is a way back here from this, but
yes,
to save this show from cancellation and to correct this narrative, I mean, is it too late then for because what I'm looking at here is, if they were to undo the Timeless Child, would that just be seen as backpedaling?
I don't care. I just think
you just want it to go away.
Yes and no, right? It could be seen as backpedaling, but so what? Like, is it backpedaling in the first place to go back and change 60 years of your show?
It is when it well, it's not really backpedaling, but it is like, because essentially, like, because they seem to be doubling down on the Timeless Child, right?
All right. Well, then do it.
But
do it
but
well.
here's what's happened here now, and let's be honest here. What they've decided is Superman isn't from Krypton anymore.
Yes.
And
Uncle Ben was alive the whole time.
Well, I mean, he makes good rice.
Yeah, of course. He's very successful.
Yeah.
No, I genuinely.
There's the issue with the story is the fact that they are turning around and altering, where this character came from, who this character is, and even if they I know they've put a little sort of a glitch in there to kind of hint that there's more to the story than we know. Even if it turns out now that the Doctor isn't the Timeless Child, because like people have speculated that it would be the Master instead. And
that seems more dramatic.
But here's the thing: I don't see how that is, because the Master and the Doctor grew up together.
I think honestly you'd want to stay away from either of those two.
I do as well.
Like,
I'd make it Rassilon.
Omega. Say it was Omega or something. Yeah, Rassilon.
Well, I mentioned this last week. I always thought that Tech Taeyun, the character of Tech Taeyun, experimenting on a child to the point whereby she was killing them to just see this thing regenerate. Yeah. To me, that sparked off the Rani in my mind. This uncaring.
Wouldn't it be crazy if that was the Doctor? And I was like, yeah, but you've still got a lot of the same sort of issues the Timeless Child gives off. Although at least it affects the main character directly, so that could be more dramatic. It really depends. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, but again, the other thing I'm gonna put out there now is that there's a huge difference between, because like it had always been speculated that the Doctor was more important to Gallifrey than just the Doctor. It goes right the way back to the Cartmel Master Plan. But there's a huge difference in the Cartmel Master Plan to what this is doing, where the Cartmel Master Plan basically says that to ground it down into sort of or to paraphrase it, basically the Doctor is a reincarnation of a god of Gallifrey, right? Whereas what the Timeless Child is saying is that the Doctor is a god from Gallifrey, and that wording is crucial. It's very, very crucial. To say that something is a reincarnation of a god just makes that thing ordinary.
Yeah, it's like it's a god in spirit only, or in whatever. It would be a god or whatever if it wasn't for the fact that they were in this mortal.
Yes,
life cycle
it's not necessarily saying that it's a god in a mortal form. It's saying that it used to be a god.
It's used to, yeah, exactly.
But now it's not. Now it's an ordinary Time Lord.
And the character that we've known since the beginning
Yes.
has been consistent with what you thought they were.
Yes.
Even though we've added something to the canon, we've made it more interesting. We haven't made
Yeah.
it.
Whereas with the
bulldoze the whole thing.
timeless child has just gone. Oh no, this thing has been around for thousands and thousands of years, and there have been thousands of
it's
doctors
just
that
a
you just
doctor.
never knew of, and
it's
has always had the TARDIS.
And it makes the Doctor, for me, I think one of the, and I don't want to start getting into the problems of the timeless child. I
Yes.
feel like that's easier to do.
I know.
I'm trying to be a lot more like.
I'm trying to look at the bigger
How do we
picture.
fix it?
Yeah.
Or how much does it matter?
Yes.
In the long run, exactly. But there are elements where it's like, well, now that's. But if you're analysing why a change to the canon is important, and why what makes it a problem if it becomes a problem, or what the difference is between that and a change that is fine. One of the main things is it fundamentally changes not only the Doctor's motivations, but also how the Doctor fits into their universe and what their relationship is like with the world that they inhabit. Because now the Doctor is basically a deity.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the Doctors can live forever, and there's you can say whatever you like about taking stakes out of the situation or whatever, but you can't. If you're gonna do that, you can't have the Doctor be the same anymore. That's do you know what I mean? You can't have that character.
Given the actual point here was the fact that when the Doctor changed from Matt Smith to Peter Capaldi, they'd already come up with this workaround for the actual life
We all
cycles.
knew they were gonna have to do it at some point, and then
Yeah.
they did it. They just went, "Oh, we'll give him more. It's fine."
Yeah, we'll give him a new.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah, we'll give him a new lifespan. But here's the thing, though: the Time Lords always did have the ability to make people regenerate,
Yes.
even
It's
since
not-
the
it
second
doesn't-
Doctor. Because the
that
second,
doesn't play outside of the realms of what we've already established. It just sort of expands on.
yeah, because like ever since the second Doctor, they were able to offer somebody a new life cycle. Because we know that because that's how the second Doctor exits Doctor Who.
Yeah.
They
they bring it up again when the Sisterhood of Khan do it to Paul McGann.
Yeah.
So
It's not beyond the realms of
regenerations
possibility.
are a thing that have happened. What's her name? Is it Romana?
Yes.
That can control her regeneration.
Yes.
That one time.
Yes, she regenerated several times.
There's a clear
Within a window.
ability to manipulate. Yeah, there's a clear ability to manipulate regenerations beyond what we've seen the Doctor do. He doesn't seem to be good at it. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like
I mean that brings up an interesting point though, with particularly with Romana. That does bring up an interesting point as to writing in the narrative of how somebody regenerates, because it's never actually been specified. We've seen it happen loads of times with the Doctor, and we've seen it happen a couple of times with some Time Lords here or there. But whereby you'll meet a new Time Lord at a different period. They'll still have the same name, but there'll be a different actor.
Yeah. And we've seen the Master regenerate on screen. We've seen another Time Lord, like a general or soldier.
Yeah.
That one time the Doctor shot that person.
Yeah.
Remember that? That was a bit weird. But we saw that happen. And we've seen Romana come in and out of a room, implying that she'd done it.
Yeah.
I assume for budgetary and comedic purposes.
Yes.
But that's fine. I just it's a thing we've seen. It's never been specific on how it works.
But that's what I'm saying. When it comes to regeneration, though, that's another thing that they've kept kind of nebulous.
Yes.
Away from sort of the details, and that's okay because the details now say that you can say in your head that you've got the continuity of how regeneration works.
Yes.
But it's not canon because actually you don't know. You've only seen this one, this handful of people regenerate.
You can make an assumption based on what's being presented.
Yes, but it is
and most of the assumptions line up. Most of them go, okay, well the Master did this, but the Doctor did this. It seems to work in that general ballpark. When you see something that is similar but operates slightly outside of that, it's like, oh, okay, so it can be different, and you've got enough wiggle room in your head to accept the fact that not every regeneration is the same. It's actually kind of part of.
But use the other
can be manipulated.
Use the other side of it is the fact that there's an episode of Doctor Who, I'm trying to think of the name of it, whereby there's an alien that passes themselves off as the Doctor, and they say that the Doctor's regenerated, which is not beyond the realm of possibility, but says that the Doctor regenerated into an alien form that wasn't consistent with the time. So the Doctor doesn't always have to be in the same shape either. And this was. I know that it turned out that this person was lying and it wasn't actually the Doctor. What's the name of the episode?
I have no idea. I've never heard of that before.
It's.
I mean, we've had psych out regenerations before. You know, Capaldi did it a couple of times. We've had David Tennant had a whole episode with somebody who was claiming to be the Doctor due to mental.
I'm
stuff.
gonna have a look here because I think Doctor Who episode guide. It's I want to say it's. I'm looking at the episode guide here. It's gotta be. Oh, this is gonna bug me now.
It's like when you know a song but you can't remember who it's by. You know.
I've got a feeling it's a fifth Doctor story. It could be a fourth. Tunas, King's Demons. I'm right. It's not Fifth Doctor. It is not Keeper of Track, and it's not State of Decay. Gloss, Haunts and Nimon, Shada, Creature from the Pit, Destiny. Oh,
We've entered the research section of the stream.
It's bugging me now.
It's everybody's homework. Figure out what this episode is.
It's because the guy's got like a head of spaghetti.
Has he got like a single eye in the middle?
No.
Like a head of.
It's just like his brain's exposed. He's got he's got a skullet without the skull.
No idea.
Oh God, this gonna bug the hell out of me.
I was with you until I wasn't anymore.
Was that the Awakening? No. Yeah, I'm sure he's.
So what, he just claims like, oh, I'm the Doctor, and everyone goes, yep.
Yeah, basically, and I could have sworn it was a fifth Doctor story.
Could be. I mean, this is what you get for having somebody else who's not massive classic Who. You know, I dabble, I dip in, I watch the good ones mostly, and you know that's pretty much where we're at. So I can't confirm nor deny that this may or may not have happened at some point.
It is a fifth Doctor story. It's Mordrin Undead.
That sounds very familiar, probably because I've heard of it before.
Yes.
There we are.
It's Mordrin Undead. That's the one. It's a fifth Doctor story. Let's look. Yeah. Control V. I wanna again see if I can get an image of this.
Do it. Yeah.
Just so you can see what I'm referring to. Open image, new tab. Yeah.
We get visuals on this show. It's a real fancy operation.
Oh, it's not that fancy.
Oh, it's high tech. It's great. Look at this. Oh wow. Oh, he's wow. There's something wrong with your skull there, mate.
Yep.
He's kind of got a Time Lord coat thing going on. That's
yeah. He kind of sort of dresses himself up as the Doctor, and he kind of claims to be the Doctor. But it's the fact that the Doctor's regenerated. He's not regenerated into his usual Time Lord form. So it's possible. It may be possible that Time Lords can actually regenerate into aliens. In fact,
could not be.
No. Well, I don't know, because Christopher Eccleston's Doctor says that he might have two heads. He might have no head. He might. The next time he regenerates, you might be a blob. It might be. So he actually does kind of reiterate that. I don't know how you don't see it.
He's still got arms and fingers. But also, use the two things with those. Number one, Christopher Eccleston's probably just joking.
Could be.
Because it's a high stress situation. He's trying to make sure Rose is not freaking out. Two, Matt Smith had just regenerated. And we all know that, especially with the Doctor, can do things to you upstairs.
Yes.
So, yes and no, I agree. And it's a neat idea. And that's pretty much where I'm at with that. But we haven't seen it happen yet to anybody.
But that's my point about continuity versus canon, is the fact that technically it could be in the continuity. Is it canon?
No.
No.
At this current point.
So
when it comes to big changes like that, if that happened, I think most people would be like, okay, but now I want to know why. We have never seen this before.
Yeah.
So like the Doctor turned into a woman recently.
Yes.
In the last couple of years. But that's a thing that we've kind of already suggested would have been possible in the past, and up until the last couple of years.
This is where I don't.
We saw it with the other Time Lords.
Yeah, I mean,
And then it happened to the Doctor.
well, yeah, that was the oh god, Corsair.
That's when he shot that soldier or whatever.
No, we saw it with the Corsair in the Doctor's wife. It's true.
Oh yeah, no, he says he had a snake tattoo.
Yeah.
And she one time and says that she was a bad girl. Whatever that means, I have no idea. Probably.
But
cheated on her exams or whatever.
But so let's just go back into this then, and the main differences between what do you think is unshakable canon in Doctor Who compared to the continuities?
At this point, nothing. And that's the answer. Like at this point, if that doesn't matter, why does any of it matter?
I mean,
and that's kind of the unfortunate fact about it. If you're asking me, like, if you're willing to do that, then you're willing to do anything, and I don't care anymore. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would have previously said everything they've just done. Don't do that. You know what I mean? You can't change the character fundamentally from who we think they are. You can add things,
and they have.
Sure. But yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I don't. It's tricky. I think the general rule, if you're going to change a character, you want to add to it, not subtract from it.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's really where you want to go. But at this point, yeah, they've just done. I mean, look, I'm willing to believe. I'm willing to be open to the idea that this might go somewhere and they might do something with this. I mean, I won't lie, and I'm not trying to throw Chibnall under the bus for this one. I feel like he gets a lot of that.
Yeah.
Maybe he deserves it, but at the end of the day,
we don't know. This is important.
Have faith in it.
Yeah, but this is important, and I've done this myself, right? And I know, and I've had to slap myself on the back of the hand for this one myself.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is, Chibnall gets given the kick in the teeth for what's happening with Doctor Who.
Yes.
But we as an audience have no idea what is happening behind the scenes.
No.
We have no idea.
That's why
but we do know.
A director or writer or whatever
Yeah.
under the bus for what is essentially a collaborative
But we do know.
process.
Yeah, but we do know that major things do happen, right? Like for example, we do know, thanks to people like Neil Gaiman and Stephen Moffat, that during the writing of an episode, they are continually given notes on what to change by the higher ups in the BBC. In fact, Day of the Doctor. Well, Day of the Doctor, Stephen Moffat was given 50 notes from one producer.
Wow.
50 of one person. And there's 6-7 people that are over the top of Stephen Moffat.
Sure.
So that sort of thing's happening. Same thing with Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman reckoned that the Nightmare in Silver was nothing at all like what he had written.
Yeah.
The Doctor's wife had gone through 8-9 rewrites, been filtered from what his story was to what we see on screen. So we know that these sorts of things do happen. So it's not.
Yeah, they will.
I don't think it's fair, really and truly, without us knowing what's happening behind the scenes, to actually lurch everything onto Chris Chibnall. Maybe he's responsible for it all, but at the same time, maybe he's responsible for none of it.
I think we should burn him at the stake anyway, just to give the people
Just
something
just give the
be
pitchfork.
happy about,
So that's why I like to be careful when talking about the actual control over the show, because we literally don't know. People have made an assumption and have jumped to the whole. And you know yourself, Chad, what working on a production is like. That things mold and change, and sometimes you've got to change shit because it's not the right weather. You can't film during the day. You've got to film at night instead. So that's got to change. These sorts of things happen. So when I don't like it when the guy gets thrown under the bus, because I don't think that we know enough about the process to say, well, wholeheartedly it's this guy's fault. Even if it is 100% his fault, we don't know that it is.
Yes.
It's just an assumption that we jump to.
And going by innocent until proven guilty, it's only fair to give him the shake of it. In which case, then, my point still stands, but less directed specifically at Chibnall.
Yeah.
And just the overall direction the product has been heading in for the past couple of seasons has not filled me with confidence that they're
Well, what
gonna
I would say, right? What I would say is that it does feel like there's a case of too many cooks in the kitchen with Doctor Who.
Yeah, and that can be a real problem for a lot of things. A lot of things have suffered with that.
Absolutely, because
the first thing
when
that
the
jumped into my head was Monday Night Raw.
when the show first came back,
Yeah.
nobody cared about the show because they didn't even know it was going to be a hit.
No.
Right? The fact that when the show came back, it was the best show on TV on a Saturday night at 7 p.m. to fill that slot for the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the fact that they would continue drawing viewing figures of over 11 million.
Yeah.
You know, 8 to 11 million was not unheard of for Doctor Who. That sort of thing. I mean, that changed. People started looking.
I mean,
they could make toys. You can't sell a Doctor Who toy now.
No.
It's an unbelievable
it became
state.
a global brand, and then it really fell off. I don't know, man. Like, I don't watch the show anymore, and that's coming from a guy who's on this stream. You know, so
Yeah.
clearly I love the product. It's just
You
I
love
don't
what
wanna
it
watch
was.
you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Here's where I stand on it then, if that's the case, and if we've outed myself as a Doctor Who deserter, I don't care if they fix it or not.
Yeah.
Because Doctor Who will still be for me what it is. And it's not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not gonna be shaking my fist at it and saying, "Oh yeah, you blew it up, you maniacs." I'd just be like, "Well, all right," and then I'll go back
But
and I'll watch Doctor Who
that's a
about
sad
the old
statement
stories.
though, isn't it? Because like I
It
mean,
is. It's a defeatist argument.
yeah, I can totally understand it because I've mentioned this before. I still have not seen Revolution of the Daleks. I still haven't seen it.
Yeah.
The last one.
Resolution.
Revolution.
Yes. Right.
Or Resolution. It could be Resolution. No, Resolution was there before, isn't it?
Special. It was the
It's Resolution and Revolution.
Could be. Aye. It's a two-part.
Yeah, but yeah, there's one res, there's one revs. But I still haven't seen it because I was sort of done with it. I was sort of, I wasn't upset.
No.
I was nothing.
That's where I'm at.
It nothing me.
That's the unfortunate thing.
It nothing me numb.
Yes, I've become so numb.
So
I
in
can feel
the great debate of continuity versus canon,
Mhm.
continuity is something that is the details on the surface that can be changed, but canon is the detail that shouldn't be changed.
I feel
It's like the spine of the book and the pages.
yes, that'll be a way to put it. I feel like, but then again, I feel like that's maybe too general. I feel like you can change canon. You just have to be very careful. You have to do it in a way that's additive and not subtractive.
Yeah, but if you add into the canon, you just add into the canon. You're not changing the canon.
Yeah, that's a fair point. That's a fair way to put it. Yeah. So I would say that canon is something you don't want to mess with because it's the established lore and the story that we've all invested in.
Yeah.
Whereas continuity is one of those things where it's like, well, you know, he was wearing a blue hat, now he's wearing a red hat, and that's a bit. It can take you out of it for the moment, but it's fine. He's wearing a hat. That's the important thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And again, Doctor Who is one of those things whereby things are up in the air as to how you can change these things, but you do need to leave it. You do need to explain it to the audience. You can't just leave it hanging.
I would say that with the thesis of Doctor Who's a show where people say, well, it's a show that can do anything, I feel like that's not necessarily true. Because there are things that, you can do it. Should you do it?
Well, that's the thing. Again, the great line of just because you can do a thing doesn't mean you say you should.
Exactly.
You know.
So, and I think there have been changes in the past that have been okay, and there have been changes in the past that people shook their fist at.
I really don't think there's anything that upsetting.
Not necessarily upset into that. Well, I feel like everything that's come prior has been overshadowed by this colossal behemoth of continuity that's come in the last season. So even if there was, I feel like
I can't. I genuinely, I can't think of a big
movie and a couple other things.
Yeah, I think maybe
how
that's
does
probably the
certain
biggest
things
thing.
work and lines between episodes. But that's all it's been. It's never been. I think you're right in the sense of like it's never been anything like this. Like this has been the first Doctor Who retcon that's been like, oh, okay, we're going from the ground up. And again, I think in other media, this would go down a lot better. If this was DC Comics, I think people would be like, all right, well, they'll change it back in 5 years, so it doesn't matter. Because, it's so common in other stories like
Has that been
that I
damaging
feel
then
like,
though? To be able to be able to say like it doesn't, it no longer matters, that you can just change it however you want.
it has been. But at the same time, yes and no, because of the nature of that industry is a bit more transient than I think.
Would it have worked better then if the Timeless Child had been a mid-season thing?
Maybe. I feel like at least that would have given them more time to really, So right now, the problem we've had is that we haven't really been able to analyze the fallout of it.
Yes, yeah.
In the show. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's the audience. It's the audience's fault, for sure. It's us. For doing it, like we're the ones doing it. But in our defense, we just got stabbed and now we're overreacting. Do you know what I mean? Like if maybe they were like, hey, here's what we're gonna do this massive thing, but now you're gonna get to see it over the next 5-6 episodes.
Yeah.
What the fallout is. That may soften the blow. Because then you get this little story arc, maybe, or whatever they do with it, and by the end of it, maybe it puts us in a place where we're a bit more like, oh, okay, that was kind of clever, or I'm not fussed on it, but I can see what they were doing. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, it's the most recent thing to really happen, the biggest thing anyway, and we're just like, well, what do we do now? Nobody knows.
And I guess then, so to sum up this chat about continuity versus canon, you'd say that both were important, but how you treat canon is probably more important than how you treat continuity.
I'd say canon deserves more reverence. I would say because continuity can be malleable. Continuity doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Continuity, I think, doesn't really affect the story in the broad strokes, or even on the micro level. I feel like continuity is fine if you want to get caught up on that, but for me, it's not that important. But canon is where the details matter, because that's the story you've been telling. And if you're going to change it, do it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
And
have a reason.
Do it. And do it for the best. I think like that. No one bats 1,000. So I'm not
Is
saying
there
that
out of other shows, mine as well, not just Doctor Who, but is there something out of all the shows that you can think of where they've altered canon completely, and it's been a better show?
That's a good question.
Like, where have they changed canon in something that's been remade, rebooted, or whatever, and it's actually improved it?
I feel like adaptations get a lot of that, because a lot of things in adaptations of books and things are made to make a movie or something more coherent or more streamlined for a 2-hour viewing experience. The first thing I thought of, again, being on that DC Comics train, was Batman 1989. I feel like a lot of people were against the idea that the Joker shot Batman's parents in that movie.
Yes.
I don't care, because for me it's like, well, it fits a 2-hour story. It's like, there are no threads left hanging.
Is that right? But here's the thing with that though. Is that more acceptable these days with how Elseworlds, in particular with what they did with the CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths, whereby in that universe it's acceptable because that's from that universe?
I would say yes and no. I don't think it's an Elseworlds thing. I think it's the saturation of the market. I feel like superheroes are so abundant now, and sci-fi stories and fantasy in the mainstream now is so abundant that things can change, and we'll be like, okay, it doesn't matter because there's gonna be another one of these. It's the same thing.
I mean, I get that, but I'm saying, like, in terms of actually having the Joker kill Bruce's parents.
Yes, I know what you mean. That's one of those things where you can be like, okay, well, in this continuity, that's fine.
Yeah, because I know that they weren't happy about it at the time. I know Sam Hamm was like, I didn't write it.
I mean, I was born 10 years after that movie came out, and I heard about how people didn't like it. So clearly, it stuck with some people. But at the same time, yes, I think nowadays it is more accepting. But that's the only thing I can think of in terms of an adaptation that changes things for the better. I think it can happen. But in terms of a show changing its own canon or a story, I mean, you can have dramatic reveals, you can have dramatic twists. I mean, Planet of the Apes did the whole it was Earth the whole time thing.
I mean,
to me,
honestly, the real big change to a canon that I can possibly think of, whereby this sort of thing happened and everybody was just like, what? Was literally, Dallas with Bobby Ewing stepping out of the shower.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know you weren't around for that.
I
but
caught Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2, so I think it's it's the same thing.
No, not really, not really. So just to put this into a detail here. Patrick Duffy decided to leave Dallas, leave the show. It was the biggest show on TV, and so they had the character shot. He was killed. He was murdered. He was dead. I think he was actually hit by a car. So he was gone from the show, and he was gone for like a year, right? But the show started sort of like being ups and downs in the viewing figures, and things weren't working out right. So they said to Patrick Duffy, "Hey, we're going to pay you a load of money. Do you want to come back?" And he was like, "Well, I died. How are you going to resolve this?" And it goes to the episode in Dallas where he's making his return, and he just pulls back the shower curtain, and he's standing there having a shower. And it's just like, oh, it was all a dream. Except everything that happened in that year, facts, figures, and things that happened in that year still happened.
Yeah.
And then, but they just carried on as if.
Do enough drugs in any writer's room and you can make it work. is the way I see it.
I mean, it was good in a way because they didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
It was just it was cut and dry. It was just like use this really hard cut, and we just go in.
Did that with the Timeless Child, I'd be fine with it. I'd just go, alright, we just do it.
But you know why that's probably know why that's such a big reference point.
Yeah.
Is that you've got a whole year of storytelling
but the difference is
that did happen even though he was dead.
We don't have that yet. We don't have that yet.
People went to his funeral. People went to his funeral.
We can change
relationships broke up.
Yeah, but we haven't had that. So just leave it. It's fine. Cut, run away right now.
So the takeaway here is that continuity is malleable, but the canon is really quite more rigid. Would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I think in general, yes. I mean, one example I just thought of was Superman. Superman's a character with a long. I mean, it's been around for what, 90 years, nearly. Over that?
No, he's coming.
Well, no, it would be 39.
39. So he's coming up. 39, I think.
No, so
yeah. Well, either way. Yeah. Either way, he's pushing 100 soon.
He's nearly 100. Yeah, it's
7 years.
So I would say that Superman's a character with such a long-standing continuity, with the varied in levels of how seriously we're all taking this over the years. Like Superman at some points in his history could have been compared to a character like Mickey Mouse, and in other points he's compared to like a modern myth. It really does depend on when you're asking. But he's been through all of that because he's nearly 100 years old as a character, and there have been times when his continuity has been retconned to hell and back.
Yeah.
Like things have changed. They've taken Superboy's been retconned. They put Smallville in. They've retconned that. He's got a kid now. He had a kid before. They've retconned stuff like that.
But but those are changing details though.
I don't know. Some things are pretty big. Like some sure Superboy, Smallville. That's kind of the same thing in different types. I get that. But Jonathan Kent's death, I'd say, is a pretty big deal.
Yeah, but I mean, they haven't done it, but I mean, again, you're looking at a lot of Elseworld stuff. So because you're looking at DC Superman, and then you're looking at Amazing Adventures Superman. Like for example,
and all these other things.
Originally, Mark Kent was not Martha; she was Sarah. So that's a change, but it still left you with the story of Superman comes to Earth, is raised by these parents, because originally he wasn't raised by the parents; he was originally sent to an orphanage.
Yeah. And again, there are times like in earlier comics, like say around the 70s to the 90s, I think it was fairly common that like Superman's mother made his outfit for him using the materials in the ship. Whereas nowadays it's more common that Superman gets his outfit from like the Fortress of Solitude. Or
again, that was a Superman 78 thing.
Exactly. Well, yeah, and it's one of those things where certain things will come along and change the canon, and that'll bleed back into the original canon. And it's a thing that only comic books, I think, have happened.
So where would you say then canon has changed for the better then? If that's the case,
it becomes for the case of a character like Superman, or a character that's been around for as long as him. He's had such a bunch of canon, not even like with Doctor Who. Doctor Who's got its main TV show,
yes,
and then it's got all these other books, all these other things, but they're not really canon.
Yeah, they're extended universe type. Yeah,
exactly. So it's like you can take or leave those. Whereas with Superman, a character like that, he gets so much stuff from all the things that he's tangentially related to that kind of bleeds back to him. So eventually they end up just kind of streamlining the whole thing.
Yeah.
So now I can pretty much tell you, like the rebirth. Well, I'd say up until about halfway through, the rebirth continuity for Superman was fairly streamlined. It was fairly like, here's the mythology, we've condensed it into this one cohesive narrative, and it works. Then they killed him off and replaced him with the pre-New 52 Superman.
I know.
But
so then what I'm asking then, I guess, what this is coming down to then, is it isn't just whether or not the continuity and canon should remain rigid, but it's also a quality issue then, because I'm literally just being put onto the idea of, when you're talking about the comics there, I was just putting myself through the idea of how people viewed Mr. Freeze before the animated series.
Yeah, before Batman, the animated series, 1992.
Yeah.
To 99, if you count the New Adventures.
I do.
Yes, I do. Everyone should.
Because I think, if you're looking at what Mr. Freeze was before that series, and I would argue the same thing about Jervis Tetch, actually. The Mad Hatter was, and I would say even Edward Nygma was
the Riddler, for those who don't know.
Yeah, I would have said that those characters were in particular given some great attention, and
that's the thing. An adaptation has the ability to go in and change those things, and an adaptation has a certain amount of freedom.
But that actually, wouldn't you say that has actually changed the canon of those characters?
Yes. I mean, most people's version of Mr. Freeze is a version of Mr. Freeze that was inspired by the animated series in some way or another, and they've done things to him since, and they've changed things.
So why is that now acceptable than over the canon that originally existed, where he was just a diamond thief?
I think you're right on the money in a way that when you said, like, well, it is sort of an Elseworld situation, you're allowed to do things in a new continuity. Like if they rebooted Doctor Who, like what we were talking about earlier, you'd be allowed to do new things.
Yes.
You can start from scratch. It's one of the problems I know that you've notoriously had with the J.J. Abrams Star Trek, is the fact that it's not a full reboot. It's a time travel story.
Yeah.
So they do things to the continuity and the canon that they're not really allowed to do, at least the way you see it and the way a lot of people see it.
Yeah.
And I completely understand that. Like, there are things that they do in that continuity that shouldn't, and from a plot and narrative sense, shouldn't happen.
Yes.
Because it's the same universe, right? But if it was a clean reboot, if it was just, alright, we start from scratch, I am willing to bet you wouldn't have those issues.
I don't think I would have the issues, but it still wouldn't be good.
Whether or not the differences, whether or not the differences would be something you'd like, but it wouldn't be down to fix.
I will say this. I will say this. When I first come out of the cinema from watching the 09 track, I was like, okay. It's not the best storytelling I've ever seen. But at least it had some fun stuff in there.
Yeah, so fun little maybe summer action movie popcorn.
Yeah, it was. But I was very much on the okay. But then it was like, but now they're trying to tell me that this is overwriting things like Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. This is trying to overwrite Doomsday Machine. This is overwriting
all clearly inferior stories.
I mean, it's just like
everything
space.
all the
Well,
Voyager,
well, all those, you know,
all
well,
of it.
Space Seed. You know, again, Star Trek 2, Wrath of Khan, Star Trek 4, Star Trek 6, Undiscovered Country. All this stuff is now being considered obsolete.
Yes.
And then I'm going, this is why I was like, oh, no. You're trying to tell me that this is the superior timeline? And then, you know, when you got into Darkness, which was just absolutely horrendous. I still, do you know, I don't think I've ever watched it since.
I watched it recently, a couple of months ago. I want to say.
Yeah.
I think I fell asleep during.
And
No, I think I just wanted to watch
yeah.
it to see, like, was it as bad as I remember? It was.
Yeah.
Boys and girls.
But then,
It really is bad.
the next one then was I remember, I remember vividly going to see Star Trek Beyond. I remember. Do you know why? Because I was in the one cinema in the middle of Hong Kong, and we were watching the film, and I was actively getting angry in my seat, and I was actively angry. And when the film finished, I walked out of that cinema, and there were a lot of Chinese people standing around listening to this guy having a rant and a rave on the 14th floor of this cinema, screaming and kicking a bucket of piss over this movie. And I mean, I remember, yeah, I remember clearly because one of my mates, Rimo, just went, well, at least you're passionate about it.
Yeah. No, but that's it. At the end of the day, it's because we are. That's
We
what
are
makes it
passionate, and
matter.
that's what, as I said,
You know.
I think what we'll do is we'll wrap this up.
Yeah.
Continuity then is important to have to maintain the flow of a story, provided that you don't change what the story is.
I think that's a good all round.
Yeah. So anyway, that's going to do it for us. I think we've covered pretty much everything we can do with continuity versus canon. I think I've had a bit of really good chat. Cause,
it's been good.
Yeah, considering that this isn't what the video was going to be actually this evening, because that's a video for another time. Because the original was going to be what would I do if I was in charge of Doctor Who. That was going to be the original video.
Ooh.
Yes, because it's one thing to shoot episodes down, but it's another thing to say, well, actually.
Is that you specifically, or would anyone that you happen to be streaming with also get to be in charge of Doctor Who?
Well, yeah, anyone.
Ooh.
It's very much similar to what we did with the who would you cast as the Doctor video that we did. Are you in a part of that, though, were you?
I think I caught some of it.
Yeah,
which I always try to dip in whenever you stream, even if I'm busy.
No longer exists, unfortunately, because it was accidentally deleted.
Oh.
That's
a mysterious
I accidentally deleted 33 videos. Yeah, and they can't get them back. I deleted the entire second season of Doctor Who that we did.
Oh no, I was in that.
I know. We deleted the TARDIS exteriors.
Your subscriber count's gonna go down the less I appear on your channel.
The TARDIS exteriors video that we did, gone.
Oh.
Half of the Tom Baker stuff that we did, gone.
Have you considered purchasing and storing videos on an external hard drive, so in case this happens again,
no,
you can just get them back up on?
No. I'm not paying money. Screw him.
I mean, he's right. He's right. At the end of the day.
Anyway, we bring this to a close this evening because it is Saturday night, so it's time to take it a bit easy and have a bit of a chill. Next week we are going to be doing the third Doctor story, Carnival of Monsters. That's going to be an ups and downs on that is. If you've seen Carnival of Monsters, you know exactly what I'm on about. This is going to be it's one of those. Well, they tried. Yeah. I mean, the glove puppets, but they tried. It's probably better than Invasion of the Dinosaurs, but we are going to be doing that as well. Because obviously we're going to be running up the third Doctor stories right up until Planet of Spiders. Yeah, so we're going to be running out the clock on that. And then, once we finish the third Doctor stories, we are going right the way back to the beginning. We've already done an Unearthly Child, but we are going to be doing the Hartnell run right up until 10th Planet. So that's gonna be a good run. I know there's some stories that are missing that we can't do, but we're gonna do as many as we can, which is gonna be an absolutely fun time. And then after Hartnell, I've got a feeling we're probably gonna jump to the 7th. So
good stories in there.
Yeah, well, again, I'm particularly looking forward to Curse of Fenric.
Because Fenric's a good time.
It's all good stuff.
It is all good stuff, right?
We've already done Battlefield, and we've already done. We haven't done Remembrance.
Well, I mean, do you want to say
we did do Dragonfire. I'm actually going to check this because I don't actually know what my 7th Doctor story is like.
Anybody else seen Dragonfire? It's a weird one. It's a really weird one.
It is.
Do you know? There's some stuff going on in that episode. Best cliffhanger ever. It's great.
Yes, it's a literal. Let's look at videos. I want to go to playlists. I want to go to the 7th Doctor. View full playlist. No, I haven't. We've actually done Time in the Rani and Battlefield.
Oh wow!
Those are the only 2 7th Doctor stories that we've done. So when we comes around to doing the 7th Doctor, we are pretty much given a clean slate. So that's cool. I'm happy with that. So yeah, that's what's going to be happening. Carnival Monsters next week, and then we're going to continue the 3rd Doctor's run until the end. Then it's down to Hartnell. I've got a feeling we are going to jump to the 7th. I've got a feeling that that's where we're going, is the McCoy era. I mean,
have you done much Troughton yet?
We haven't.
Troughton would be a big one for you.
It would be, but I've done. I did look. I didn't see. I think we did Macroterra.
Oh yeah.
No, I don't. Yeah, we did. We did Macroterra.
It'd be interesting to do Macroterra back to back with Gridlock, just to see.
No, it wouldn't. Gridlock doesn't hold a candle to it.
Fair enough then.
Macroterra is really good. I
haven't seen it in like 10 years, maybe. I don't know. It's been a long time. I don't even know how long it's been out for, but it feels like it's been ages.
Macroterra came out last year.
Oh, there we are. Then I'm probably talking complete out of that hole.
There it is.
That's fair.
There it is in all its spectacular glory. It's really good. It's one of my favourites because what I like with Macroterra is that it doesn't try to follow the design work too much. Like the faceless ones
kind of take some liberties with the animation, you mean?
Yeah, like the way that the macro move is done really fluidly, and they move really creepily. The sets are designed bigger and better, so it's more cinematic. Yeah, which is what they should do, always do. Which is why, to me, when I saw Fury from the Deep, it wasn't as, because they was pretty. I don't put the full blame on them for it because they were trying to do it in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I remember when you got that, and you were really excited for it, and then you were a bit disappointed, and I felt bad.
Yeah,
I was hearing all this. Oh, I can't wait to watch this.
It's because of what the standards that they had set. Because when they done Macroterra, it was brilliant. And then when they done the faceless ones, it was like, oh, this is so good. And then it gets to Fury from the Deep, and clearly there was 20 people less working on this project.
Yeah.
And it was showed because all the cameras were locked off, all the animation was rigid. It didn't try to do anything new, didn't try to show any new camera angles. Everything looked like it was shot all from one angle, and it didn't explore the story in animation terms. So I still like the story. I think the story of Fury from the Deep is still brilliant. It still is. But there's times whereby
the animation a little bit.
I mean, there's things happening in the background with noises, like the Doctor's doing something, but in the animation he's just standing there, and you're like, you couldn't have had him like fiddling with something with a screwdriver or something, and just, that sort of thing. It's not, but again, it's because the other two were so brilliant in front of it. You know, that made me just go,
It's more of an expectations thing, and those expectations were justified, in fairness. So it's one of those things that's like they kind of let you down. Wasn't necessarily their fault entirely. But
no, I don't hold it against them.
you know,
I'm still happy that I got it.
yeah.
You know, I am very, very happy that I got it. But
I mean, more travel stories can't be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? At the end of the day.
Anyway, that's good.
So-
That's gonna do it for us this evening. I hope you've had a good time. We've had a good time. I've had a good time.
Do you have a sign off thing? Because I've had a great time. I just wanna.
Yeah, I'm just gonna sign off.
Is it like
I'm gonna sign.
same Doctor Who time, same Doctor Who channel?
No, it won't be. It won't be the same time because there'll be technical difficulties.
Next time in time and space, whenever that is. That's fine.
Right. Have a good time and see you next week for Carnival of Monsters. Have a good night.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.